Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
100%. Ready to go. It's been a long time coming, and I just can't wait to be out there.
That's why we play football in the SEC, trying to go get it done.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies. And a good morning to you. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the brand new Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan here. A different look to start off the show. We should have a little coffee table here for Coffee Talk, presented by TexAgs Coffee. Good morning, OB.
Good morning.
I wanted to start the show off today, a question for everybody listening and for us. Is there anything on Saturday that could happen against McNeese that would make you feel better, things in particular, or we just, you know what, there's nothing they can do. I expect them to win by 40, and I don't care until they beat a real team of substance. So I start things off with that, because I have some things I'd like to see this weekend to make me feel better, and I know there's some things that will make me feel worse if I saw, but let's go with the better. Let's be optimistic Aggies at the moment.
For me, no.
Nothing.
You're supposed to go out and dominate a team like McNeese, a team that lost to Tarleton. So the only thing I could do in that game is come away feeling, if things don't go well, feeling discouraged. If you can't go out and dominate McNease, what are you doing here with all the things? So I don't think that, that if Connor sets his feet and and throws the ball well and does all those things that they said fundamentally he was struggling with against Notre Dame, I guess you can glean some encouragement for that, except I've seen him do that before. Right? So no, I think A&M, obviously you want them to go out and play well, but if they play well against McNeese, quite frankly, they can play poorly against McNeese and win by 40.
So a couple things that I'd like to see. I'd like to see no happy feet. Okay? Because I think happy feet is here, right? Mm-hmm. In your head. I'm pointing to the radio audience, to my head. Like, I think a lot of that could be 100 things Notre Dame was getting to you. The defense that I was listening to Jordan Pugh yesterday with Bronny, and the NFL type of defense that they were doing, and they had the personnel to be able to attack it. So is it in his head because of what they were doing? Is it in his head because of the injury situation from last year? So that's one thing I'd like to see. If he doesn't have happy feet, and I don't expect him to have happy feet, I'll feel like, okay, first test since Notre Dame, I feel that at least it's not a mental thing no matter who he's playing against, right? Then I'm going to need to see more of it against Florida and beyond. But for me to feel a little bit better, I want to see that. If the wide receivers that A&M has don't get separation, that's going to be a huge red flag. So give me some separation, okay? I want to see some separation. If I see that against McNeese, I expect to see it, but I want to see it, OB. Like, I need to see it.
Yeah.
And I expect to see sacks. I recognize why there weren't a lot of sacks against Notre Dame. I recognize it. Props to their scheme, to their plan, and to their offensive line. But it was also because it was designed that way, not to put their quarterback in harm's way.
Absolutely.
But not every team's going to play like that. Not every team's got the personnel to do that. So I want to see some sacks, right? Catch up on that sack total. Those are things that I'd like to see that will at least make me feel like, look, it's not a big opponent, but I feel a little bit better about where we were. Because the thing that I find really interesting is how much meanness, if that's the right way to phrase it, is going Connor's way. Because outside of Notre Dame, I think Wixon yesterday texted the show, and I read it this morning. I was getting ready for this show. He said, show me Connor winning a game of substance, where he plays well, as opposed to having these yards. It's something to that effect.
So LSU, that was ranked in the top 10. That wasn't a win of substance, and he played really well.
He played very well in that game.
People think if a quarterback doesn't throw for 300 yards, he didn't play well. And that's not true. He threw 2 touchdown passes. He had a couple of runs in that game to extend drives, and he played well.
He did play well. People don't think he played well in the Miami game. I think he played very well in the Miami game.
I don't know what would make someone think that he didn't play well in that game.
He played very well. Obviously, the Ole Miss game. Now, we can point at games. How many games in your estimation has he played poorly? Poorly is the word. Notre Dame, poor.
Yes, absolutely. He wasn't great against Auburn, but I don't think he's as bad as people try to make him out to be. He led them on 2 drives that were not touchdowns. They were field goals, but not because of him. It's because of guys jumping and things like that put them behind the chains. And the UMass game when he was a freshman, the weather was horrific. And I don't know if I can come up with another game that I don't think he played well in. I don't need to make excuses for him, but the Auburn game up there when you had half your team out around you.
So one of the things that I've seen is that we've been too optimistic for this team and built up hopes because I think we always were very 9-3, 8-4 is what I think this team is capable of, and that was always from the beginning.
I picked 8-4,
and we always said. Now I thought they were going to beat Notre Dame.
I did too,
and I thought we were going to beat Notre Dame because of the offensive line that they had. That's why I thought that was going to be the big difference in the game.
Too.
Well, it was such a huge difference in the game that their coaching staff, who gets paid money too, by the way, decided we're not going to let that be a liability in this game.
Right.
Also, their defense did. Some people are and we're going to start looking ahead to McNeese, and that's why I posted the question the way I did. I posed the question the way I did. But their defense was very solid in their looks and confusing Connor, and they had the personnel to attach to it.
I'll say this. I never, in my wildest dreams, thought that Connor would have the worst game of his career in that game.
The worst game of all college quarterbacks, apparently.
And had he been average,
they win the game.
They win the game. So with all those issues with Connor.
But people don't want to hear that.
I know. But with all those issues with Connor, and you got to get those issues cleaned up, it was 13-13 with
2 minutes left.
Yeah, but I'm even thinking that 3rd and 5, because that's where it all changed. But it was 13-13 with about 3-4 minutes to go, and they were in a 3rd and 5. Again, if you get the stop, but you didn't. That's we say that A&M if, but so make it. And by the way, Notre Dame's the number 7 ranked team in the country. So make improvement where it needs to be.
But you know why?
And see where you can go from there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You know why people get frustrated with that commentary?
Yeah, because they've seen it before.
They've seen it before, and they saw it with Jimbo and what's different and the offense. You told me this offense was going to be creative. It was going to look good. I expected it to look good. I do. I expected it to be better than we saw last year.
They had, and that's what's so frustrating. They had their opportunities in that game. What did I tell you at halftime? I said, I've seen this movie before. It's 6-6, and you should be in control. And you've got to make that pass completed to E.J. Smith for a touchdown. You can't have a first down at midfield nullified by a wide receiver getting a false start on a sneak. You can't get the false start on a 3rd and 3 when you're driving and have to settle for a field goal. The targeting call that helps him get 3. The horrific interception.
The bad officiating on a couple plays. I'm sorry, that's not why they lost, because we've brought up like 6-7 plays already that could have been different. But it was a push-off, OB.
Oh, yeah, but, first of all,
make the play.
Some teams are always going to get those. Notre Dame's one of them. And secondly, you've got to play. You got to take advantage of your opportunities so the officiating doesn't derail you.
Yeah. The bottom line is, folks are frustrated because they've been waiting. They've been waiting. Mm-hmm. And by the way, this is a new season. It's still a very early season. There's been one game against a team that will probably be in the playoffs. Now, I say that, and people will quickly bring up, we thought Miami was going to be good last year, and they weren't. You're right. Yeah, they weren't.
I didn't. But,
but you know what? Miami's an example like A&M that should have been better than their record, which was the game that they gave up at the very end. I think they went 7-5 last year. But
I don't know, gave up. I remember
the clock management from
the horrific, Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech, there you go. There you go. So, like, they had games like that. And by the way, this is why we're in the SEC. This is why Texas A&M's in the SEC, is to be so happy after an SEC victory and so mad. What do you think they're thinking in Florida, what they're thinking at LSU? What they're thinking in Vandy? They're like, hey, why not us? Well, I'll tell you why. But why not us?
There are places in America that have even more frustration this week than A&M does. And I'm thinking of Blacksburg, and I'm thinking of Gainesville, and I'm thinking of Tallahassee.
So if, by any chance, I'm not concerned with the score, okay? They should win 38-3, 41-10, whatever. They should, okay? Let's take away the score. But if Connor goes out there, is very efficient, 16 of 20, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns. Marcel and Jalen come in and do their thing as well. Le'Veon Moss rushes for 120. Offensive line looks good. All that is expected. But if they look like they're on the same page and there aren't mistakes, like the glaring mistakes that we saw in game 1, will you feel a little better?
Like I said, I think it's a glorified practice. If it's 38-3, I'm leaving the stadium frustrated. You know, this needs to be one of those games you're scoring in the 50s or 60s. Tarleton had 26 on them and some big plays. So, quite frankly, I don't know if Aggies are ever going to feel really, really better unless A&M is 4-1 with Missouri coming to town.
I agree with you. I do agree with you.
Because, you know, you're going to beat McNeese.
But are they going to be angry? I got to give props. There was a listener and a subscriber who was not so nice on Saturday night. Okay. He might have tweeted some things.
Okay.
He sent the nicest message to me personally yesterday. Not only apologizing, but just recognizing the moment, like I was just really frustrated. And I think, do you think more people, shout out to Blake, by the way, do you think more people have taken a step back from their anger from Saturday night, their alcohol-induced anger, or just sports anger? Because I had sports anger too.
Yeah.
People don't think, like, we get frustrated too.
Yeah, I think, I think it doesn't hurt as much. You know, time heals all wounds, right?
Right.
And I think it doesn't hurt as much as it did Saturday. But I would be skeptical to think that that people aren't still frustrated and maybe a little bit angry, because once again you had the opportunity, just like you've had the opportunity so many times last year and the year before. And when does the opportunity become a victory?
Yeah. This is Coffee Talk presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of mornings by going to texags.com/coffee. Let's go around the room and say hi to the people. We go behind the glass and we say hi to the great Nick Savage, who's working with Kate Bickham, it looks like, right next to him. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What's up, buddy?
Nothing much. Like y'all mentioned, happy to be turning the page to this week. But like you said, it should be a fairly comfortable win for the Aggies. I don't think I'd be leaving the stadium disappointed or mad or anything if it's not like a 60-0 game or anything. But I mean, I think Connor will get back on track because he stepped up, he owned it, and I'm looking forward to this weekend, another game day.
As he said, he would be happy with 60-0. You expect 60-0.
You're a much better team. You've got a better caliber of athletes. If you can't go out, I mean, it may not get 60 out of Mike Elko's benevolence, right? But it should be that to that degree. You know, if
does Mike strike you as the kind of guy like, I'm going to show them? He doesn't strike me that way.
He doesn't strike me as the type of guy that's going to try to get an extra touchdown or two just to make himself feel better.
Yep. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Aggies gather at the Angry Elephant. Callie Gardner's there. Callie, good morning.
Good morning. How are we doing?
We're good.
Good.
We're better than we were Saturday night.
Sunday, Monday. It gets better.
I've said this many times on this show, Callie, and I really mean it. Traffic is worse when the Aggies lose. The weather is worse when the Aggies lose. Mm-hmm. The mess in my house is worse when the Aggies lose. When the Aggies win, I don't notice the socks. I don't notice the dogs chewing on stuff that they shouldn't be chewing on. It's like the song, It Was a Good Day from Ice Cube. I get to work and no problems when the Aggies win. That's how life is for me.
Absolutely. Kind of staying on that track, I know we found out yesterday A&M football did fall out of the top 25, but I don't think that was a huge shock to anyone. I know.
Don't care.
Clemson stayed in, which I was kind of a little bit, but it is what it is.
We got to win.
We got to win.
Got to win.
And then another note, A&M men's tennis pro Jackson Withrow and his partner advanced to the semifinals of the 2024 U.S. Open after a 3-set victory on Tuesday. And he will make his semifinal appearance tomorrow when he takes on Jordan Thompson and Max Purcell for a chance to compete for the title. Excellent stuff. Any text messages of substance to start us off? We had 2 very contradicting text messages.
Oh, let's do it. Let's hear it.
We have a text from Jeff in College Station, and he says, what would make me feel better is a shutout in the first half and at least 28 points with Connor behind center. I want to see Reed and Henderson take significant snaps in the second half and all second team O and D in the fourth quarter. And then we had a text analyzing kind of how he thinks Northern Illinois is going to score more than 13 points in South Bend this weekend, and he thinks A&M is only going to win 10-3.
Oh, I take that bet.
He's just trolling. Who's this? Who was this?
David in the Pacific Northwest.
Come on, D. Come on, bro.
They're going to score 10 points against McNeese.
He's just trolling there. He's just trolling.
Troll.
Okay. If that were to happen.
Yeah, then then
I'm not going to do what people on Twitter are saying that they'll do.
Dramatic. Then it would be what's the word? Desperate times calls for desperate measures.
Yeah. All right, let's hit a break here. When we come back on TexAgs Live, we're going to go through some games that you want to see this weekend. I was surprised by the first one.
Really?
Yeah, I was surprised. I want to see it, but I was surprised it made the list. So we'll talk about that. And not first place, maybe the last one on the list going up.
Okay.
That one I was surprised by. Right now, Prize Picks, if you sign up today, you can go to texags.com/TexAgs, use the code TexAgs. You'll receive $50 once you play $5 lineups. But if you sign up today, when you play $5, you don't need to win, receive the $50 bonus is guaranteed. And if Caleb Williams passes for 1 yard on Prize Picks every week in September, that's all you have to do to win. Automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks with W's. Don't miss the deal on Prize Picks because when it's gone, and it's going to end at the end of September. So all Caleb Williams has to do is throw for 1 yard. So you're asking yourself, maybe you are, what's Prize Picks? If you don't know, it's daily fantasy sports. It's the biggest daily fantasy sports platform in America, and they're the easiest and the most exciting way to play DFS. It's you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including the pros and the sharks, you pick more than or less than. That's all you have to do on 2 to 6 players' stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Again, it's very easy to play. Hopefully you'll join us here at TexAgs and be playing with us. The website is prizepicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs to receive $50 guaranteed once you play $5 lineups. It is Prize Picks. Hi, we're back here on TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. A couple things that caught my attention on the YouTube page. One is from Gabe. Why does it have to be alcohol-induced? Semi-kidding, but typically, angry sports fans and alcohol say meaner things than ones who just came from Mass. That's just my opinion of the situation. I could be wrong.
Don't they serve alcohol at Mass?
They do. Good point. Yeah. Point OB. The other thing is, I don't know if he's talking about us here, Gridiron Masters. Tuck your shirts in and cut or wrap your hair.
And do what?
Cut or wrap your hair. Maybe he's not talking about us, but he put it on there. My shirt is tucked in. OB's wearing a hoodie. You don't tuck in hoodies. That's a duck camp, by the way.
Duck camp, yeah.
Big fan of the duck camp. And also, I don't know how to wrap my hair. I think my hair's long. Yours is definitely not long enough to do that.
Yeah.
All right, let's do some games that you want to see, OB. So, not super surprised, but, I was a little like, this game. So tell us the last game on your list as we move up.
Okay, first of all, it's not a great weekend for matchups in college football, but these are the games, if I wasn't, aside from Texas A&M and McNeese, that I'd say it'd be worth looking at. Number 5 on my list is Appalachian State against number 25 Clemson. I don't know if these were ever updated. So against Clemson, Clemson's favored, but they can't afford to have a hangover after that big game that they were playing against Georgia and didn't play well. So they're going to have to be ready to play against Appalachian State, because I don't know if you know this, but Appalachian State has a history of pulling off major upsets. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I know it.
Yeah, and that's probably, if there's a Clemson live show going on right now, they're probably asking the same question. Is there anything that Clemson can do against App State that'll make you feel better? By the way, in my opinion, it's about the rankings, but it's not. Nuñoism. Clemson dropping to 25. They looked way worse against Georgia. Yes, Georgia's the best team in the world. Okay. Looked way worse than A&M looked against Notre Dame. A&M got penalized more, probably because their lack of by the way, Clemson had a lack of offense too. And a quarterback who has struggled just as, more than Connor Wigman throughout his career.
Yeah, but like you said before, I don't care. Just win and you get into the polls, but lose, fall out, okay. Next on my list, Boise State at Oregon. Question for you: do you know what the record in that series is?
Now that you're asking, it makes me feel like it's closer than I would expect.
They played 3 times in their history.
I'm going to say Boise State's won 2 of the 3.
3 of the 3.
3? What?
Yeah, Boise State's never lost to Oregon. They've been a thorn in the side, and Oregon's defense. They got to contain Ashton Jeanty, 267 yards and 6 touchdowns in the opening win over Georgia Southern. You say, so what? It was against Georgia Southern. Well, last week, Oregon played that other team in Idaho, and I think the final was like 24-14.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, next game.
Colorado at Nebraska, renewal of a once bitter rivalry, really hated each other. Nebraska looked significantly improved last week. They got the freshman quarterback, Dylan Raiola. Mm-hmm. Colorado did not. They were lucky to escape North Dakota State that they barely beat. So, this could be one of those games if Nebraska wins where the heat continues to build on Deion Sanders.
I'm going to keep hoping for them to lose. Sorry to the folks in Colorado, but I just don't like that team's approach, that program's approach. I'm very, very, very interested in this next game.
Yeah, number 14, Tennessee. At number 24, NC State. Quarterback Nico Iamaleava from...
nice job.
Yeah, was that close?
I would pass.
Iamaleava. He played like a Heisman candidate last week. Of course, it was against Chattanooga. So, once again, he should look good, but... Hey, if he can play to that level, where he had like 380 yards, 360 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, if he can play to that level against the Wolfpack, that's supposed to be pretty good, he may really be a Heisman candidate.
Yep. And then the last game, super intrigued by, and I want to see where you're trending. You don't make your picks until Friday, but where you're trending.
That's a good question. I don't know. I'll probably take the safe bet because I had a bad week last week and go with Texas. But
I had a bad week too.
Number 3, Texas at number 10, Michigan. Longhorns look to prove their worth. They're going to the big house against the defending national champions. And the Wolverines obviously aren't as good as they were last year. How can they be? But they're really solid. Really not just solid. They're outstanding in the defensive line, and they're going to test that Texas offensive line. And if they win and affect Quinn Ewers in the passing game, then look out, because they still have Donovan Edwards carrying the football against a Texas defense that has to prove that they're still good against the run.
So what number, for Texas to win that game, do they have to score in the 30s? Do you think they can win in the 20s? What do you think?
Probably in the 20s.
20s you think is enough?
Yeah, I think it may be a defensive game, because it's not like Michigan lit it up last week offensively against Fresno. I think they scored 30 points against Fresno. Now, they were probably playing it, to be honest, they were probably playing very vanilla against Fresno, thinking, hey, we can beat these guys no matter what, so let's just don't show anything exciting and just go out and do the basics to win this game and not show Texas anything, because that's who you got next week.
CJ, I'm reading your text and about something I said on the other side of A&M won 10-3. I will never do that thing that you texted about that's all over Twitter ever in my life.
Does that have anything to do with the Florida State fan?
Maybe.
That was talked about?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not doing that, ever. Anyway, we'll move on from that. So not a lot of great games. A lot of eyeballs will be on the Ann Arbor game, obviously. And I think the more I think about it, I am intrigued by that Clemson game. You sold me on it. I'm intrigued by it. It's not must-watch television, but I'm like, I'd watch that.
Yeah, I don't know about Appalachian State, what they have this year. But I know historically they have a pretty sound program. And if Clemson is still thinking at all about Georgia, they could jump up and bite them.
Yep. Later on today, OB, I'm not going to run it till tomorrow. I'm going to interview Gary Goff, the head coach at McNeese State. They had a rough weekend to start off their season 2 weeks ago. I'm going to be interested to see. They're entering their third game, so they're a little bit more seasoned. I am looking forward to seeing what he has to say. So there's a little bit of a tease of what's coming tomorrow. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Kirk Bohls with renewing the rivalry. We'll do that on the other side. Right now, though, 1775. I was telling you about the gentleman who sent me a message kind of saying, hey,
I'm going there Friday.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Are we going there Friday, or you're going there Friday?
Our friend from Rollo Insurance invited me.
Is it Mo?
Mo.
Mo?
So, I mean.
Mo Green sending you there?
Well, one-eyed Mo.
One-eyed Mo. Well, thanks for the invite. He actually did invite me 2 weeks ago.
Maybe he will. I don't know.
No, it's too late now. I see how it is. He invited me a couple weeks ago. But what I was going to say is the gentleman who, let's just say, lost his temper with his Twitter fingers on Saturday night, who sent me a nice message, offered to Venmo me lunch at 1775. And I was like, better. How about we go together at some point to 1775? Because that is my spot. And I said that loud, but it's the truth. It is, I love, pretty much if you go there, this is going to sound like I'm not giving them credit. I'm giving them a lot of credit. But you're going to gain weight. Like, just the facts, because they give you so much food, OB, and then if you're like us and you're human, you like to try everything that they bring to you. Everything. And you just keep eating, and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to have one more. And then you're like, okay. It makes for great take-home food too, right? For Buck, for you, for Irma, for everybody.
Like I said, the last time we were there, we brought stuff home. I put it in the refrigerator thinking I was going to eat it later that night. No, Irma swooped in before I could get home.
If Elizabeth and I ever have a fight, right, or an argument, and she wanted to, actually, I'd be the one apologizing to her, let's be honest. But let's just say she wanted to apologize to me. All she'd have to do is bring that queso mac and cheese.
Yeah, that's pretty special.
979-492-6241. It is 1775. They're open Thursdays through Saturday, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. 8203 Raymond Stotzer Parkway, Suite C, College Station, Texas. We can't wait to see you at 1775, give you a little taste of what Texas has to offer. It's 1775txbbq.com. All right, it's TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hour is presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looks so good with Maroon U. Time to renew the rivalry with Kirk Bohls, presented by Duck Camp. Duck Camp gear is made for people that live for moments out there where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, football to watch. Check out the gear at duckcamp.com. And with that, we go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. Kirk Bohls of the Houston Chronicle joining us here on the program. Kirk, good morning, sir.
Good morning, you guys. How y'all doing?
We're great.
Good, Duck.
Y'all recovered from Notre Dame game?
No, that's going to be a while. It's going to be
Too soon.
A little bit.
Too soon.
Y'all still celebrating Colorado State?
Darn right they are. They celebrate every W here. W's are hard. Just ask Dabo Sweeney or Mike Norvell, right?
Yeah, when you're playing a real opponent.
Who y'all playing this week?
Oh, and we're not playing a real opponent, but we're not going to be celebrating it all week.
I'm not saying they're throwing parades or confetti around here, yeah, but
you sure they didn't have a parade?
You can't have a parade. It's too congested. There's too much traffic.
Good point.
Hey, so I didn't know this heading into this interview today, but OB told me, so we're going to focus a little bit on the 1993 game between A&M and Texas, but OB told me that was the first
First Texas and Texas A&M game I ever covered. It was my first year working with the Eagle. I think Kirk had just qualified for Social Security, and it was cold. It may have been the coldest night of my life in the state of Texas. I remember it was so cold that the press box was fogging up, and Alan Cannon got a big leaf blower out and was walking up and down the press box, trying to clear the condensation. It was freezing. It was the night earlier that day was the day the Cowboys lost to the Dolphins when it was all iced up and they blocked the field goal.
Yeah.
And Leon Lett went sliding into. I mean, it was just it was freezing.
That was cold. That was a cold day. But that's supposed to be. That's football weather, right? I love it.
No. That's ice fishing weather.
So I remember this game. After you mentioned that we're going to be talking about it, I looked back. I was like, that's right. Didn't Leland McElroy kind of get things started for the Aggies in that one?
Yeah.
He did. He had a huge kick return for a touchdown, and he'd already had two that same year against Rice, I believe. And
in the same game, back to back.
Yeah. I mean, that was a star-studded backfield. I mean, you had Greg Hill on that team, and you had Rodney Thomas. And I remember I've always been a Rodney Thomas fan at Groveton. He was such a great player. But Leland McElroy's kickoff return for the touchdown kind of opened things up because it was a close game. I mean, the Aggies ended up winning, 18-9, and that wasn't a great Texas team. They had some great players on that team, but it wasn't a great team.
Well, the winner goes to the Cotton Bowl, though, if my memory's correct. What was the guy's name? Scott Schvetti, the kicker?
Scott Schvetti, yeah.
And he had kicked 3 field goals around Leland's return. So I guess it was 9-7, and Tony Harrison and I want to say Corey Pulig team up with the touchdown pass. I think it was just before the half. So A&M's up 19-15. But what I really remember is in the fourth quarter, like in the last minute, Texas is looks like they're going to take the lead. They moved down. Well, maybe not the last minute, but it's late in the game. And they moved down, and they're inside the 10. And Texas had this guy, I know he's a good friend of Kirk's, Lavelle Pinckney.
He and Mike Adams, remember?
Yeah, but Pinckney who's like 6'4" and about 230, and he catches a slant, and little Ray Mickens makes the tackle to prevent it from being a touchdown. This is huge because then A&M stops them on 3 plays, and it's Dennis Allen with the coach of the Saints, right?
Saints, yep.
With the interception in the end zone to protect the win, and I think A&M went down and was able to get a clinching field goal.
That was like 4th and 1, I think, and Shea Moran's the great dual threat quarterback from West Texas. Remember, he was a baseball player too.
San Angelo, yeah.
He was going to be the next Mickey Mantle, one baseball scout told me. But you're right. They had Pinckney and Mike Adams on that team. Brent Brockermeyer, the great left tackle. Dan Neal.
Yeah.
As good a guards they ever had. Won a couple of Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos and Van Malone. I mean, you can go down the list. 5-1 team.
Yes.
If you can believe it.
Yeah, sounds like a team with a better roster than results, which we can relate to.
Unfortunately, we can. Hey, Kirk, just your thoughts on what you saw from A&M this weekend. Obviously not the result they wanted, poor offensive performance, but would you be crying up to the river if you're an Aggie fan right now based on that performance?
No, because I think Notre Dame's a heck of a team, and that's a solid to great defense. And that secondary, my goodness, did they ever play zone? Were they like man for man every play? And a sure tackling team, and they bring the lumber. So, I only got to watch in depth the second half because I was still writing about the Texas win. But I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. Now, Connor Wigman didn't look good, and for him to throw, 100 yards, and they miss Evan Stewart, Anais Smith, and some of those receivers. So they got to get the offense clicking. But, Mike Elko's a defensive guy, so that didn't surprise me at all. But, Connor Wigman, he's going to have better days, I think, better than, say, Florida State, which ran for 21 yards against Boston College. So they'll get well this weekend, right?
I did call that game, by the way.
Well, he did.
Yeah, actually, I don't know if I called it. I don't think I thought they were going to win. I thought they'd keep it close because I thought O'Brien is good at scheming up with time.
I took Florida State. I thought they'd be angry and take all that frustration out on Boston College, and it turns out they're just not good.
Yeah, they're just not good. Rushed for 21 yards against BC. And DJ Ungale, I've never been a fan of his. He reminds me of Jamarco Russell. Was that his name?
Yeah,
from
Jamarcus, yeah.
Yeah, he's just not very accurate. I don't think he's very
probably a great kid.
Probably is a great kid. But
has been around.
I would like that. At A&M lost its center for the season, right?
Yep. Mark Naboo done for the year, unfortunately.
Boy, losing him and Reuben Owens, that's a big loss. But I don't know. What do you think from Connor? Do you think he was rattled, panicking?
I think it's his first game since breaking his foot, and he was scared. Like I think there was he's going to have to take some more hits to get through it. And I hope this weekend we can see a little bit more calm. We better see a more calm and composed Connor, because that was the biggest difference. You saw Riley Leonard back from injury too, by the way, calm and composed. And Connor, for the first time that I've ever seen, and I haven't seen every high school game, but I saw a bunch, and what I've seen at A&M, he just did not seem like the same kind of the swagger that we're used to seeing.
Well, there's no question he was rattled. They, both Elko and Connor, even acknowledged that the pockets were a lot cleaner than he thought. So what basically you're telling me is he was, rattled in the pocket, and he was looking for contact that just wasn't there and wasn't coming.
He doesn't seem to have a great rapport with any of his receivers yet. Like he doesn't have a strong connection with the receiver yet, does he?
It didn't feel that way this game, but I mean, I would say in the past he's connected with Noah several times. He's, they only went to the tight end once or maybe twice, but Trey Watson had the only catch, I believe, from that group.
The thing is, Connor started out, his first pass was just a bullet to Cyrus Allen, and a little bit later he throws an 18-yarder, I think it was, to Trey Watson, and there was a little bit of pressure when he didn't get the ball. It was a little bit too far. It was catchable, but a little bit too far for E.J. Smith, and everything seemed to go downhill from there.
Right. Well, they got a couple of games they can get well against McNeese and then go to Florida, right?
Let me tell you something, Kirk. Around here, we do not take any road SEC game for granted. We haven't won on the road since 2021.
It's been a minute. Florida's got to beat somebody, right?
Not us.
Not us.
Not A&M.
I think they can handle Samford this week. Maybe not Samford and Son, but Samford on his own.
At least one of them they can handle them.
Kirk, tell me your thoughts on this Michigan-Texas game, because I've questioned how good Michigan is for obvious reasons. You have a new coaching staff. It's, some familiar faces, obviously, but a new offense, but a very good defense. Could we potentially see something very similar to what we saw from Notre Dame and Texas A&M when Texas does go to Ann Arbor?
Very well could. I mean, they got a great defensive front. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, they're two defensive tackles interior that, Texas had two great ones inside in the defensive front last year in Byron Murphy and Devontae Sweat. And these guys may be the equal of it. They're both 6'3" and, 340 or more. And so, that's going to present a big challenge for Texas' running game, I think. And then Will Johnson, he's like an All-American quarterback. He had a pick 6 against Fresno State. But you got to be beating a Fresno State more than 30-10. And it was 23-10 late before Will Johnson's pick 6. So, but like you said, David, they're replacing 9 offensive starters, and here's the other stat: they got a preferred walk-on as their starting quarterback, Davis Warren, out of Los Angeles. He said that was his first start. He was 15-25 for 115 yards. So they're going up against Quinn Ewers, who'll be making his 24th start. So that's not exactly a fair battle, but you're right, David. I think the defense is going to be stingy, and it's going to be a really tight first half. I think Texas has a good chance to wear them down and put up more points than Michigan. But yeah, it's a big barometer for the early part of the season.
You going?
Yep, going Friday. I've never been to the Big House. You have, right?
I have been. I saw him play Ohio State there.
Yeah.
So
temperature is supposed to be in the 60s, so it's supposed to be great football weather.
Kirk, great stuff, man. We'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Okay, have a good one.
See you, man. Kirk Bohls there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. By the way, this interview, Renewing the Rivalry, brought to you by Duck Camp. You're right now duck camping it up. You've got the hoodie.
I do. I have
cool hoodie. Yeah. And you got the shorts.
I got the Duck Camp shorts. I forgot my Duck Camp hat, which I need to get one for Kirk because, like I said, he is a duck, Taylor Duck.
And he's on the Duck Camp segment, so it'd be good for him to wear it.
He probably camps a lot.
Does he wear his hat the way I do, backwards and to the side, rapper style?
No, I don't think he does.
Okay.
I don't know if he's that hip.
It's actually not hip anymore. It was hip in the 90s, and it really wasn't hip then either.
He wasn't hip then either.
Well, this is true. Who were you? Why did I laugh so hard?
No, I was pretty hip.
Pretty hip. Milliken Reserve Time, Farm to Table Community and College Station. They got homes, they got farms, they got wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature, and they got some great events coming up. They got Volunteer at the Farm on September the 7th at 10 a.m. They've got the Farm Stand the same day, 8 a.m. to 12 o'clock. How about Gardening 101, Integrated Pest Management? I want to learn more. You could do that on September the 10th, my birthday. Sunrise Coffee, on September the 12th. Volunteer at the Farm, Day at Play, all these great events. Just go to millikenreserve.com/calendar to find out about that. And they're committed to maintaining and restoring a beautiful natural habitat, and that's why you find all the beautiful animals there at Milliken Reserve. The website is millikenreserve.com. That is millikenreserve.com. And now we're on.
Do you know this song, David?
Of course, it's on every war movie and 1960s movie.
So what is it?
It's a great song.
Okay.
What's it called?
Free Bird by Leonard Skinner.
Oh, I'm more of a Skinner guy than I am a Leonard guy.
Yeah.
It's a joke. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. By the way, every guest and caller that joins us will join us on the Boss Firearms Hotline. They provide high-quality firearms components to their civilian and law enforcement customer base. See what they've got for yourself at bossfirearms.com. I made a comment earlier about Connor, and I don't know if I used the word scared. I don't know if I did. I don't mean it as in scared. I mean it in the David Carr kind of way. And I saw somebody else bring this up. David Carr had such a bad offensive line his rookie year.
He got shell-shocked.
I think he got sacked 86 times, which at the time was a record, might still be the record. But, he felt it coming. And I could kind of understand, after the offensive line performance that we'd seen the last couple of years, how a quarterback in this offense might be a little used to being hit, right? That's what I mean more about. He just wasn't confident in his recovery and in the line. I feel like maybe that's why he had happy feet. We'll never know psychologically why. But if I were to guess, that was it. But I'm not here to guess. I'm here to see him play better against McNeese.
Yeah. And he's going to play better. Look, I don't think he'll play that poorly the rest of the year. I came into this season expecting big things from Connor Wigman, and I still expect big things from Connor Wigman. I think he's a good quarterback who had just an awful day. By the way,
I got to get better. Look, I got to be a professional. Let's be honest. I got to be a professional. You're going to hold this against me, folks. But when A&M loses, it is very difficult for me to watch sports. I watch it, but it's more like it's not the vested interest that I have when A&M wins, right? So I have yet to watch the complete game again, okay?
Yeah.
I will, because I have to, right? I've watched parts of it. I've gone and like I was here Sunday kind of looking at certain parts that I wanted to see, but I haven't watched it entirely because it just hurts to watch. But I got to be better than that. And I say that to you because Bigelow, one of our listeners, who's been a defensive coach in high school, watched again, and he said on the second view, no, Thomas was actually open more than we thought.
Well, that's what the coaches were saying too. And again, the egregious interception. We all know Noah. Connor knows Noah was open.
Yeah.
I'll say this for Connor, and we talked about it yesterday with Ryan, and I'm sure you agree. It's to me.
Ronnie did great yesterday, by the way. I listened a lot.
To me, Connor showed something by showing up, taking the questions, accepting responsibility, facing the music, and vowing to do better. Apparently, he even told his teammates, guys, look,
I got to be better.
I got to be better. And in the past, we've seen players that have struggled, maybe not on their own volition, but they've been protected. Don't bring them out there. Don't have them.
Yeah. Bring the punter.
Yeah.
By
the way, they should have brought the punter.
Tyler White was great, yeah.
He was great. If everybody would do their job
like him,
the way Tyler White did his job, this is a national championship team.
And by the way, I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way because I don't mean it the wrong way. But Connor,
and I hope I never see Tyler White play again.
Yeah, I want to just sevens, please. But I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way. But that's what I expect from my quarterback. So while I was impressed by it, that's what I expect.
But it hasn't been the case.
And that's more on the coaching staff, right? That's more probably certain coaches holding people back. And Elko does not strike me as that kind of dude.
I think they would have given Connor the opportunity not to go to the press conference if he didn't want to.
Yep.
And he said, no, I'm going to go do it. I'm not going to run from anything. And I'm going to face the music. And I respect that.
I do too. Hope great hour, buddy.
All right. I thought it was a good hour.
Pretty good. You were Tyler White-ish.
Yeah. I like to punt.
When we come back on TexAgs Live.
And everybody hopes they never see me again.
True. Juan Haris. All right, we are back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is time to take over some football by going to the football takeover czar and the professor and the sideline reporter for the Houston Texans on the Boss Firearms Hotline, Juan Haris. John Harris joining us here on the program. John, how are you, buddy?
David, how you doing, bud?
Not great. Not great, to be honest with you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, I mean,
oh, no.
I saw
What's
your tweets.
wrong?
You and I were on the same page. We were angry. We didn't like what we saw from the A&M offense. I saw your tweets that night. And we're trying, look, by Wednesday, you know how it is in the NFL. You're looking ahead, right? You're not looking back. But it's hard to look ahead at McNeese. So, I'm kind of like in this tap dance where I want to get some opinions about what happened, but I'm going to ask you the question I asked OB to start off the show. Can A&M do anything this weekend against McNeese that would make you feel a little bit better after what you saw against Notre Dame?
I hate to say it, but no.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be negative about it, but it's, there's some things you're going to be able to clean up. That always happens from week 1 to week 2. I think there are going to be a couple things that you might be able to say, okay. Obviously, one of the plays that really had me really, really upset about the game was the third down play in the second quarter, I think it was.
The third and one?
Wide receiver couldn't get lined up.
Yep.
He tried 3 different spots, and then once he eventually gets to the third spot, he's all exasperated and throwing his hands up, and it takes his time getting set. Well, then they're running the play, get the first down. No, legal shift because he's moving. You could see some pre-snap stuff that, okay, they're getting out to their positions, they're getting lined up, they're not having any of that. So I do think there are a few things from the operational standpoint, but there won't be anything where you're like, oh man, when we play Florida or we play, Texas, oh, this is going to be better. You're not going to find any of that out. I just, the whole thing was just kind of frustrating, David, because, what happens when a college football team loses a game? I mean, it happens in the NFL too, but in particular college, everybody has an opinion. It's Elko's fault, Colin Klein's fault, it's Connor Wigman's fault, it's the wide receiver's fault, it's the offensive line's fault, it's the defensive line's fault. Everybody has got fingers to point at somebody, right? And every finger that gets pointed in some sense, there's some validity to it from the game on Saturday. That won't be solved against McNeese State, unfortunately. Then there are some worries that I have about this team going forward. You asked one of them the other day. You asked me this point blank the other day. And I said, no, the receivers will be okay. I think the receivers will be fine. They'll get open. I think Colin will scheme them open. Receivers couldn't get open. And then on the biggest play of the night, the one that everybody knows is the last play of the game, the last offensive play that mattered of the game, they run a route that I guarantee you Colin Klein, this offense has worked 1,000 times. It's man coverage. It's a simple clear out with a slant behind it. It should work every time. It's the perfect play call for that route. And the wide receivers completely mess it up. And I guarantee you they worked on it. So this week in practice, I would imagine that there were some things to go back and go, okay, where's the mistake here? Why was this a mistake? It's on the coaches, it's on the players. And I think everybody shares blame after that one. But it doesn't take away the anger, as you talked about, David. I mean, I was just upset because I just want to see the Aggies play better. And, of course, I picked the Aggies to win. And I told a few friends of mine, I think the Aggies are going to win this. I think the Aggies are going to be a different team. And when you saw a lot of bad habits seemingly from prior years keep going forward, you're like, but I think the biggest thing of all, David, that probably bothered me more than anything was the fact that, I'll ask you this. If I'd have said to you before the game, I'd have said, what's the one position unit that you're totally and completely confident in going into this game? I would have said defensive line. Mm-hmm. That was a Notre Dame offensive line that had 4 career starts, starting a true left tackle, or a true freshman left tackle, who had never played college football ever. he's apparently facing a first-round dude, and Notre Dame stuck it right down their throat, especially in the second half. And with what? With what on the offensive line? That wasn't Blake Fisher and Joe Alt. That was Anthony Knapp, and I don't even know what the other guy's name is. I only know Anthony Knapp's name because I had to go look it up and figure which guy was skirting and the defensive line going to just ramrod all game long. Now, you can argue that Notre Dame, time possession, Riley Leonard, quarterback runs, all that, like, okay. And the tackling wasn't great. And again, that goes back to something that was, previous years too. So this is the challenge for Mike Elko. Week 1 to week 2. Where those units that we thought were going to be dominant, they got to dominate this game. And they've got to continue to play at that level. So I don't know exactly what went wrong. I don't know what happened. I've gone back and looked at it, but I didn't go back with a fine-tooth comb. I just watched it in real time and just thought, guys are getting whipped at the line of scrimmage on both sides. The conference that the Aggies play in, David. You think that's not going to happen again if they don't have a collective come to Jesus meeting? So work it out, find the right thing. Notre Dame wasn't cramping up. They didn't have a lack of conditioning. They handled the crowd really well. And A&M, in some sense, didn't handle their business. And a lot of old habits showed up. And a lot of worrisome things showed up that you won't see change in week 2. Or you might see change in week 2. But it's got to become permanent change going forward for the Aggies to get to double-digit wins this year.
Johnny, so I just want to pause and see if I heard you correctly. You weren't impressed with the offensive line? Because I thought they looked – I guess I'm so used to what I saw the last couple of years. I thought the offensive line was pretty good. The A&M offensive line.
That's a good point you say in comparison to previous years. I didn't really have a ton of problems with the offensive line. I thought they had a couple of breakdowns. Like Howard Cross's sack. I can't remember who was at center at that
TJ
point.
Shanahan had just come in at guard whenever Coley had come in.
Right. And so I thought they messed that up. I thought it was okay, but I really felt like, and obviously that was probably the toughest matchup I thought for A&M of all was the offensive line going to be able to handle a Notre Dame defensive line is pretty good. So I thought the offensive line was okay, but I just felt like there could have been more. There could have been a little bit more in the run game. I actually liked the run game okay, but I thought there could have been a little bit more. And I really thought that they would be able to wear down Notre Dame a little bit, and they just weren't. It's just the other side of it was kind of disappointing. But I think my expectations were not really tightened for the offensive line like they were for Connor Wigman, like they were for the defensive line. So the thing I like about it, in some sense, David, I don't like seeing what I saw, but Connor took the blame for it. I mean, he went up and said, I didn't play well at all. I played horribly. He didn't point the finger somewhere else. Elko didn't point the finger somewhere else. There was no, hey, it's your fault. No, it's their fault. There wasn't any of that. And I like that. So in a tough loss to a good, solid, I think it's a good, solid Notre Dame team. I don't think it's a great Notre Dame team. I think they'll be limited at some point when they take on some of the heavies. And I think if A&M had been able to have a few wide receivers get open, I think that secondary is good, but I don't think it was the damn 85 Bears or the 81 49ers. They were good, but guys got to get open. And I think there'll be teams against Notre Dame that'll get open. Now, Notre Dame's schedule is Notre Dame's going to walk into the playoff because they have played nobody at this point going forward, except for maybe USC. So that'll be fun. But I do think the offensive line had some moments. And I thought the run game at times had some moments. So that to me was positive. But hopefully that'll get better against McNeese and that'll continue to improve because it's got to improve. Because the passing game is going to look like this. Boy, David, it's going to be tough. And I just thought this passing game was going to have so much more. Not in like that's a fancy scheme or that. I just thought guys would be able to get open or they'd be schemed open and there would be some nice completions where I'm like, ooh, I like the concept here. I like this. I didn't like anything in the passing game the other night. Nothing.
All right, so let's kind of break that down a little bit. In your career, have you seen a guy that has happy feet, fix happy feet in that season, maybe from week 1 to week 2? Because when you look at Connor, he just never was set. He addressed that in the press conference, which I give him props for. But how fixable is that? And why potentially did we see that? Is it because he's thinking about what happened against Auburn last year? He doesn't have faith in the offensive line. Is it because he never felt his wide receivers getting enough separation and so he didn't know what to do? Is it because he's thinking about his injury? Like, what do you think caused his happy feet and how correctable is it in season?
You hit them all, David. I mean, I think you hit everything that would impact the quarterback at that point. I mean, yeah, obviously Connor's really the only one that's going to be able to answer that question. But I think you hit on everything. I think, knowing, hey, I want to go here with the football. I want to go this side with the football. So when I take my drop, boom, nobody's open. Oh, crap. Okay, what do I do? And I do think it takes young quarterbacks a little bit of time to kind of get that point and knowing the clock in their head, too. I mean, Connor's had how many starts, David, in his career?
9.
How many starts has Connor had? Yeah, 9. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. I mean, it's not a lot of starts, especially when you're coming off of being hurt and getting beat up the way that he did last year. So also you're facing a pretty good front. So you're going to tend to have some of those things. But I think one of the bigger things was just, I don't know that he had trust in his receivers. I don't know that he really trusted what was there, because to me, he was throwing the ball to the backs a lot. I mean, there were a lot of times he was throwing the ball to the backs, and the backs, no offense, but it didn't feel like the backs had really good hands. Now, you can scheme it up and go to the backs if they're playing a bunch of man coverage, and you'll get them on rail routes and wheel routes and things like that. Boston College did that the other night. Will Lawing caught a great game against Florida State, and he just kept going to it. Well, Boston College's backs caught the ball. I think they caught every touchdown that Thomas Castellanos threw. Like, if you don't throw to the backs, that's fine, but you got to have backs that are going to catch the football religiously and every single time it's thrown to them, and that just didn't happen. So I think it was a combination of a lot of things, but my sense is that it's the first start of the year. You're facing a really good front. He knows to get rid of the football, and he has nowhere to go with the ball that makes any sense. And so at that point, you do start to have a little bit of panic. And if you go back, I don't know what the targets were for the running backs. I just felt like, in particular, the first half, the running back targets, was kind of a high number to me. I just kind of felt like, man, he keeps going to the backs, and that's just not where to go. And then as you keep watching, you're like, man, Notre Dame is just clamping these receivers. So I think it's probably a combination of all that. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on Colin Klein. Okay, my receivers aren't getting open one-on-one. Man, I got to scheme this up. I got to scheme these rub routes. We got to work these rub routes a little bit more. We got to work these route combinations a little bit better against these. Recognition of what they're looking at, zone versus man versus match. We got to work on that. So I do think that it can calm down, and I would expect it to. Once you just get that first action out of the way, you go back to practice, you work on a few things. I think Connor can clean it up. I don't want to say I'm not worried about it, but I do think once he gets settled in, I think he'll realize, hey, I do have a tick more time, a tick to maybe 2 ticks more than I expected behind this offensive line. And maybe that is just enough for his receivers to get just a little bit more separation. But then he's going to have to be ultra accurate with the football and put it on his receivers, because I don't look at his receivers and go, oh, just get that ball in the area and that guy's going to make a play. Like Bo Collins, and you called it, Bo Collins was really good for Notre Dame. Now, why the refs didn't call it 15-yard penalty is a different story, but either way, I think he's got to find a go-to guy. So hopefully that'll happen pretty soon and he can get locked in, even if it's just, I'm getting locked into you on third down, I'm going to you. If that guy can give him a chance, get open and give him a chance, his happy feet won't be there as much.
2 more things for you, Johnny. I quickly want to touch on something because you mentioned the game with Boston College. That was the biggest call I picked in our Pick 6 game, Boston College, because knowing Bill O'Brien the way we both do, and you know him way better than I do, he, with time, can scheme up and have his team ready for big games. And I was not surprised by that at all. Were you?
No, I was surprised Boston College won. I had Florida State winning. I had Boston College covering. So I just felt like Florida State would come back. here's the fault in this, and it goes back to, and this is kind of my worry in talking about Connor. Like DJ Uyunglele, has he improved? Like, no, there's no improvement from the time he got to Clemson. And then when he left Clemson, he bashed the Clemson offense, which for good reason. The Clemson offense, as it's constructed, sucks. And so he had valid reason, like, oh, it's the Clemson offense. So he goes to Oregon State. He was decent, but he only completed 57% of his passes. You saw in Ireland, it's just like this. It's like all over the place, but he's super talented. So every now and again, he's going to hit a throw. I think that was the one thing that I anticipated being a little bit better. I thought he would be better than he was in Ireland. He was okay in Ireland, but great. But I thought they'd come back, settle in. But here's the other thing. Florida State's tried to build that program with a bunch of transfers, and the two transfers they had last year, Verse and Fisk. I saw them here with the Rams in joint practices, and I was like, oh, my God, they're good. Holy crap, are they good? And it made me think, I wonder what's left at Florida State. Well, now we found out what's left. Then nothing. Florida State doesn't have anything, especially defensively. They have no playmakers, none. Linebackers are gone. DBs are completely less than average. So, and Boston College took advantage of it. And here's the other thing: Bill didn't call plays the other night. He was a head coach. He let Will Long call the plays, and Will did a tremendous job all night running a college offense, not running that Patriots or Earnhardt offense. Like, no, they ran Boston College's offense the way Will Long wanted to run it, and I think that shows growth for Bill O'Brien as a head coach. And look, we know Bill O'Brien can coach. We know he can coach, especially at the college level. He can coach, and he proved it the other night. So, it's the other things that Bill always had an issue with. So hopefully if he wins more games, then those other things won't be an issue. Plus, he's back home. He's comfortable in Boston. His family's all there with him. He feels very comfortable there. And I could see him staying there for a while because he'll have things going. He knows how it goes at Boston College because he lived that life. So I think it's a really good spot for him. But when all things considered, when you look back and go, yeah, shouldn't have missed this. I was surprised that Boston College won, but I wasn't surprised that they ended up covering.
John, I got about a minute left. I just want to read this message from DT Roll Hunter, who's actually a Bama fan that listens to our show. And maybe this will make me feel better after you analyze it in about a minute. John's take on the secondary, talking about Notre Dame's, is bitter. It's been like 3 years since any team has torched them. And the Marvin Harrison had 3 catches against them, had a poor game. Caleb Williams had a poor game against them. So how much of it, I know you didn't call them the 85 Bears, but how good is that secondary?
Well, I think one of the things with the secondary that I was concerned about from a Notre Dame standpoint was losing their starting corner, Cam Hart. I mean, he was a really, really good corner. Plus, Benjamin Morrison was coming off an injury. And so you throw those two things together, those are your 2 perimeter corners. So you never know where Benjamin Morrison's going to be in his rehab, and then who's going to replace Cam Hart. So that to me was what I took into account. Like, yeah, I thought the Notre Dame secondary has been really good. I mean, we acknowledged that last week. Like, it's a good secondary. But I think some of A&M's issues made them look like the best secondary in the country. And I don't know that I'm completely ready to say that. But they also get some help from that front. That front is really good, too. So that the coverage and rush working together, that's the epitome of it right there at Notre Dame. Because Morrison's going to go in the first round. Like, he's a top 10 pick. I don't know after that if you're going to have a bunch of top 2 round, top 3 round Notre Dame secondary guys. They just play really well together and have been playing well together. But Morrison coming off the injury and the loss of Cam Hart to the NFL, I thought would have an impact and give A&M a chance. That has not been the case. I mean, and here's the other thing, too. His point about Marvin Harrison. Guess who covered Marvin Harrison throughout the entire Ohio State game last year?
Hart.
It was not Benjamin Morrison. It was Cam Hart. Cam Hart was the one. And in fact, that was one of the things I put in his draft report, like, hey, go watch his game against Ohio State. So, because that was the game he played very, very well against Marvin Harrison. So Hart's gone and Morrison's coming off an injury. So I thought there would be an opportunity for A&M to kind of work at that. And it just didn't, because Notre Dame's guys that replaced Cam Hart, and they played very, very well together. But A&M's receivers kind of opened the door for that too, but not being as pristine and as clean as they needed to be.
Thank you, Johnny. Talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, David.
Later, bud. John Harris there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Appreciate his time. By the way, Benjamin Morrison had arthroscopic surgery on his shoulder. That's why he was out, and that was actually during the summer. Duck Camp time. Let's talk about Duck Camp because OB was wearing it earlier in the show. You saw it. They have shorts, they have hoodies, they got hunting gear, you name it. They're the place to go to feel comfortable with how you dress when you go anywhere, right? You can wear it for hunting, obviously, and fishing, but you can just wear it around the gym, around the house. It's awesome gear. They want it to feel good, and it does. They want it to be super comfortable, and it is. And it's not too baggy. It's not box fit. Things fit and feel good on you, and they have the sun protection line of shirts. They have fishing apparel, and they've got the Mallard Game Series hats that people love. You see them all over across the street. It doesn't matter. They've tested it from the backcountries of Alaska to the dove fields of Texas. They're ready to keep you cool and comfortable during those scorcher game days. So wear them to a game real soon. I'm wearing my Duck Camp gear all the time. I wore one yesterday, no doubt. So Duck Camp gear is made for people that live for the moments out there, where there are fish to catch, birds to hunt, time to kill, and football to watch. Check out the gear at duckcamp.com. That is duckcamp.com. We're back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Coach G is in studio. First time to do the show from the studio. How are you, sir?
Doing great. This is terrific. Really nice open space, and not used to being in a studio with just two humans. This is
right.
Kind of space age. Very, very cool for you guys.
Well, I asked, you haven't been here yet? Like we've only been open a week.
Yeah, well, I mean, I came in when they were still dusting stuff off. I keep expecting, Brent Musburger to kind of come walking around one of the corners here. It's
you never know.
You never know.
So let's talk about the early part of the season. Some highs, some lows. How are you feeling about things right now?
Well, I think with us is we've been in games that we could have won every game, and we've kind of been burned by some really good play by our opponents, and that's the issue is the respect that our opponents have for us, that we're going to get their best game, and we've gotten the best game from our opponents. We just have to step up and put our best foot forward. That the goals that have been scored against us have been pretty wow, and that's I think something that we've got to look at. That we've got to be able to clean up a few things, just in the pressure that we put on people defensively. That's something that's been a tough lesson, and that's a lesson though that's I think in this week and the training that we've done this week, that's obviously one of the big applications that we've been putting into it, because the team we play on Thursday, TCU, is an excellent team. I mean, they are I think everyone would look at them as being the preseason favorites for the Big 12. They've won three Big 12 championships. They're on a great streak right now. They have 4 wins. 4 shutouts, and they're coming off of another win just on the other day. So we've got to look at them as being a really, really important game, both in state and as what can be a really good national bump for us for postseason.
Remind me, I feel like the TCU game is always wacky. It comes down to all of them, right? The last few years.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got a great record against them, but they've won the last few. So it's we're 11-3 against them, but they've won the last 3.
Wacky late goals, right?
Yeah, like last year, we had a situation where Miley Hayes missed a penalty kick, missed several breakaways, and then they scored a great goal out of in the last waning moments of the game. Great individual effort by their striker, and and she's back. So they've got they've done a really good job. Eric Bell and Ryan Higginbotham, their 2 coaches, they've got a good base to the way they play. I respect a lot about them. They play a lot like us. Good in attack, good in counter pressing, the way that they play, and. It's one of those things where if we can get a result, we know they're going to win a lot of games. Those games that they win away from us can help us if we can just get the result on Thursday night. And I think it'll be a big night. It's a Cavalry night, so a lot of the boys here in town, and those of you who don't know, Cavalry is a big youth club here in town, boys club, sponsored by TexAgs. You see TexAgs across the jersey, and I know that everyone in the club is proud of that. It's a maroon and white sponsorship. So the boys are going to wear their uniforms to school tomorrow. So you'll see that proudly across all the schools here in Bryan College Station. And then they'll wear their uniforms to wear their jerseys at least to the game tomorrow night. And I think that'll help with the atmosphere. Other things that are helping out with the atmosphere over at Ellis is, we got new food trucks in the venue. Yep. The old concession stand, which has always been so far away from the stands. We've closed that down. It's not even part of what's going on. So there's a new vibe in the park. Those of you who were at the last game, more than 5,200 in the building. We think it'll be a good crowd for this game because it's always a great game. So, but we need that student body out at the match because we feed off of that energy. The energy is always good, and this is always a big game.
In high-level soccer, just like high-level football we saw this past weekend, it sometimes comes down to a play or two. How does a team fix that, I don't want to say mid-season, but in-season?
Well, for us, it's about, kind of closing up our lines, being able to play with a good level of compactness in defense. And then we're an excellent counter-attacking team. You've got people like Mekhi McDonald, you guys worked with this summer, Mia Pante, and then the key for us is finishing. I mean, we've had chances to finished a lot of easy goals, and the goals we've been scoring have been the difficult goals. Sydney Becerra scored some unbelievable goals
great.
from beyond 18 yards, beyond the penalty area. We want to be able to play at a pace that is difficult for the other team to defend, and we've been able to do that. But it's just a matter of, can we get that last chance on frame, within the frame of the goal, under the crossbar between the posts and over the line. That's the key. We've scored 10 goals in these 4 games, but can we get the goals in the times when we need them? And our response to the goal that Baylor scored, which is a terrific goal, our response to the goal was fantastic. We came right back after the goal and get on them. But my thing was, we should have been doing that from opening kickoff.
Right.
So we have great depth on this team, so we can overwhelm a lot of our opponents with immediate get on them, get after them, and then make substitutions and keep it on them. And TCU is one of those teams that can do the same thing. So I think for the neutral fan, this is going to be a great game. And then we're going to turn around again, and we're going to come back on Sunday. So for the next 4 weeks, we are Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, ending with Texas in 4 weeks. So it's we're on a long run now. We've been kind of in a build-up, kind of getting ourselves through preseason and kind of building up our fitness and speed of play to where now we're entering a period in going into the SEC portion of the season before too long, where we're going to have to really get it going, and it starts with this massive game against TCU.
Last thing for you, one of your former players being honored this weekend. Let's talk about Amy Behrens.
Well, Amy Behrens is again one of our legends. We've put a lot of people into the Texas A&M Hall of Fame. The Burgess Banquet's going to be on Friday night, and then those players you'll see them out on Kyle Field on Saturday. But Amy Behrens was All-American for us. She was a all-conference player when we were in the Big 12. All she helped us do was win 4 straight Big 12 championships, a couple Big 12 tournament championships, 4 incredible runs in the NCAA tournament. Her and her sister, Carrie, have gone on to kind of take over a family business and have taken that business to new levels. They run a bridal boutique and fashion boutique up in the Louisville, North Dallas area. And just an amazing woman, amazing leader. She did a wonderful job with us as a player and continues to really represent Texas A&M every day in what she does. So Amy Behrens Hidalgo, her and her husband met as a camp coaches at the Texas A&M soccer camp, which is kind of a cool thing. But she'll be at the game on Thursday. I know she's going to talk to the team, and then they'll be here throughout the weekend. So couldn't be more proud of her as a player, but also what she's continuing to do as a businesswoman and as a mother. So it's pretty cool.
Coach G, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. When we come back, Max Wright going to join us here on TexAgs Live. Right now, FBS Appliance and their team of experts are here to help you have the appliances in your home that make it a home, not just a house. It is a home with the appliances that they give you. They have all the top brands you can imagine. They can fit any budget, and they've been taking care of Texas since 1988. They want to be your trusted appliance store because they have this expert staff that's going to guide you through the entire process, right? Getting the right appliance in your home. They'll have video cameras to help you set it up. So before they get there, they know what corners they have to take and what instruments they'll need to bring to it. There's 8 showrooms across Texas, and you can visit them online at factorybuilderstores.com. That is factorybuilderstores.com. Oh, I'm on the air. That's good times. TexAgs Live. I heard Bad Bunny, and I know Max Wright was probably bobbing his head to it. Let's go to the Boss Firearms hotline. There he is. Max, good morning, buddy. How you been?
Good morning. How are we doing? I'm doing good.
So I want your perspective because you know those guys. You know Connor. You know this team. Offensively, was it frustrating to watch it because you know what they can do? And what do you think the biggest issue was?
Oh, 100%. I mean, getting to watch, a game for the first time as a fan in almost 7 years was a weird experience. And man, it was eating me alive sitting up there in the stands. I felt like I was helpless. I wanted to be in the trenches with my boys. But yeah, I think, anytime that you come into a new offensive scheme, I got to be a part of that and watch us come into a new scheme with Jimbo Fisher. It's hard to go out against a really, really good defense for the first time and, have that be the first game that you get some experience out there. I think that this will be one of the best defenses that we face this season. I think that Notre Dame defense is really, really good in the secondary. And I think that they're a physical group in the box. And I think that one of the main issues whenever you go back and you watch the film, they were able to play with a single high safety and pack the box as much as they wanted to, because they trusted their secondary to guard our receivers one-on-one. I think that any time that, a defense has a luxury like that to be able to, go one-on-one against wideouts, it gives you the chance to shut down the run game. So I think that offensively for us, we got to look to get separation. And I think that we got to look to do what we can connection-wise between our receivers and Connor to minimize, the defense's ability to make things hard for us. We got to make them respect our pass game to where we can go out there and have our full offense available to us. I think that defense was, they played a good game. They held a really good team to, 13 points up into those last 2 minutes whenever, they had that last running drive, whenever they were able to run the ball a little bit against us. But man, I think that this next week, I'm expecting them to bounce back and be honestly ticked off playing against McNeese State. I think that this offense is hopefully going to come out and put up a ton of points. Sometimes it's good to get punched in the mouth. It wakes you up a little bit, and then hopefully this will set the standard for where they want to play at for the rest of the season.
I should have led with this, by the way. Great job on momentum shifts. You're writing for TexAgs.com right now.
Yes,
so for folks who haven't seen it, go check it out. He did a phenomenal job. Have you ever seen Connor flustered like that, like in your times at practice and seeing him, from his freshman year making a start, against Ole Miss, or coming in midway through the South Carolina game, the Miami game where he saw pressure throughout the game? I feel like just body language-wise, I've never seen Connor look like that. Have you?
Man, I think that, coming back from the injury last year and it being nearly a year since he's played in Kyle, for it to be the fourth largest fan base or fourth largest attendance to a game ever for Kyle Field, I think that the stadium was rocking. And, sometimes that can get to you. I mean, whenever you haven't played in front of that many people in a long time, it can get in your head a little bit. But man, I haven't seen Connor, ever be like that. He's usually calm, cool, and collected. I think Elko said it best. It did kind of look like his feet were kind of ahead of his body and what he was wanting to do. So he was a little amped up in the pocket. That's a testament to the defense that he was going against. That the DC for Notre Dame, he's been in the NFL, so he was putting some dynamic looks and dynamic blitzes up there that I think we're getting in Connor's head a little bit. Probably seeing some looks that were different than what he's seen before, which, I think that it was just a perfect storm for him to maybe get a little in his head. But man, I think that that'll be the last time that we have to talk about Connor being that way. I think that when you get punched in the mouth a little bit early in the season, it wakes you up and you're like, oh, all right, that might be the best team I get to play against. Now I'm going to go out here and dominate the rest of these games. All right, that's out of my system. I'm ready to rock and roll from here. I know that that's how Connor feels right now. So,
Max, what are players telling you? I assume you've had some conversations. I don't know if there's anything you can share about their frustration level, about what happened, and what they really, as we turn the page to look ahead to McNeese, what are they expecting to see?
Yeah, I mean, talking to guys, everyone knows that that we kind of beat ourselves in a lot of ways in that game, and guys felt that way, which is both extremely frustrating and kind of reassuring. And people are going to be frustrated hearing this word, but execution, because we've heard that so much over the past few years. If we went out there and did our job, and guys are going to hate me saying this, but if we went out there and did our job, we would have been more successful on offense and things would have worked out better. If we would have connected more, things would have worked out. But I think especially whenever you're in a new offense, guys realize, like, man, there were a lot of things that, we missed on that would have set us up for some success better in the game. But what I'm hearing from guys is that they're frustrated. they felt like they should have, pulled that game out. And, the offense is putting it pretty heavy on themselves to pick it up this week and to be, putting themselves in the position to have better performances as we go on throughout the year. And I think that that's a good thing that they're feeling. I think that it was pretty obvious that our offense struggled, and they feel that and they know that. So I think against McNeese State, they're going to want to come out and put up a ton of points and, show, hey, this is the offense that y'all need to be getting yourselves ready for this year. I expect Connor to come out and be slinging the ball and for them to be doing things that, are more characteristic of the offense that we know.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because it was going to be my follow-up question to you anyway. Like, when we think about a poor performance and then McNeese is up, like, is it one of those games like, yeah, you're going to see some points in this freaking game, guys. Like, fans, relax. We're going to score 50-plus. Is that kind of the mindset of the offense? I'm not saying coaching staff, because coaching staff can take their foot off the accelerator. But if you're Connor, if you're Le'Veon, if you're all those guys, Noah, you name it, right? Trey Watson, you're thinking, oh, poor McNeese. Oh, no, by the way, poor Florida the week after.
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right. Anytime that you have a game where, you know it after a game like that, where you're like, man, we kicked ourselves in the butt there. We put ourselves in a bad spot. You come out the next week wanting to score 150 points. You're like, if there's any chance where we can get that scoreboard lighting up, we want to do it. So I think that, yeah, they're definitely going to come out fired up. I think that just like you said, McNeese State, yeah, that's going to be a game that they look to, run up the floor. But I think also looking forward for the next few weeks, they want to prove that they are an elite offense. I think that that's, people are coming at them from different angles. Everyone's kind of saying stuff on social media, and guys see that and guys hear it. And it lights a fire under you to want to prove people wrong and kind of shut people up. So I expect them to come out the next few weeks and look to light up the scoreboard, which should be really exciting. And I hope that we get to see them do just that.
Last thing for you. You said in your article that the offensive line will stand out compared to some of the struggles last year. What'd you like about the line?
And I think that you got to take into account the defense that they were playing against. I went back and watched a lot of the film, and I thought that they handled themselves fairly well. There was one slip up against a 4-man rush where they had the sack happen. We had TJ Shanahan who came in, who's a younger guy who doesn't have a ton of experience playing against that defensive line, missed on a double team and just got his head looking the wrong way. So, that's some inexperience kind of playing him. But I think for the most part, yeah, there were some pressures that happened in that game, and they should absolutely clean those up. But, Connor had a lot of time and a lot of situations to make some plays. And I think that in comparison to some of the stuff that we were dealing with last year, it was a step in the right direction. I think that, looking forward, this offensive line should look to be more dominant. And since, it's different guys coming in from different schools, they're only going to get better as the year goes on. And with them getting more used to the system and more used to protection schemes, things are only going to get better from here. I think that that's one of the things that you'll see improve the most in a new offense is offensive lines. It's the hardest position on the field. There's so many things that got to play into it. And I love the fact that they got kind of, a hard physical test the first week against Notre Dame. It's a great setup for them to be playing the rest of the year. Midway through the third quarter, they're going to look around and be like, man, like that Notre Dame game was way harder than this. Like we're in a good spot. So I think that we'll get to the end of the year. I think we'll look back and be like, man, that offense have matured so much, and they're going to be in a good spot.
Max, you killed it on your first week, man. Great job.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. I'm excited to be doing this more.
Yeah, man. We'll hopefully get you here in studio soon. Take care, buddy.
Yes, sir. Gig 'em.
Max Wright there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Jamie Morrison. He had to flip his schedule. We'll talk to him here in a minute. If you're looking to move back to Aggie land, what you need to do is check out the Association of Former Students, tx.ag/association jobs. They got openings in several departments. So if you want to live in Aggie land, you left like me and you wanted to come back eventually, well, now might be a great time. They always have openings in several different areas. They're the premier alumni association and the oldest organization serving A&M in support of that Aggie network. And they play a part in everybody's story, every Aggie story, I should say, from Howdy to here. Don't miss opportunities to help out the association with Howdy socials, Aggie Ring Day, class reunions, Aggie muster, and everything in between. Join a team that exemplifies those Aggie core values of integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service, all in support of the worldwide Aggie network. If you're interested in joining a team or sharing with someone who would be a great fit, please visit tx.ag/association jobs to apply and get more information on each position. It's the Association of Former Students. And we're back on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. We got Jamie Morrison in the house to talk a little bit about how the early part of the season has gone and look ahead to Friday. How are you feeling about things?
Feeling great.
Yeah.
Came in here last time talking about our offense, and it's continuing to fire. Talked a little bit about getting back to our blocking ways, and that's starting to fire. So really, really happy. And I thought we got into this match, and we've talked as the season goes on about playing to our identity earlier and earlier, and I think it took us half a set. I think playing in front of the 12th man was a cool experience, but also a wow, this is a different experience for some of our athletes, and it took us about 15 points. But once we did that, we hit a groove.
Can you kind of explain that? Because I think we saw it a little bit in football, like that first game in front of the crowd, how like there isn't, yes, it's home, but there's an adjustment to it.
Yeah, I think there's a huge adjustment. I think there's two pieces to it. There's the amount of people, and I think for us that's starting to grow and grow and grow and grow. And then there's just the crowd's more engaged than they are anywhere else. So hats off to our yell leaders just for getting that going. But it's a different feeling also. So it's the sheer number and then just their vocal. And I think there's this want to do well by them when you're out there that puts not a little bit more pressure, but like there's this want to perform for them. And I think we got kind of through that in 15 points and then again hit our stride.
Obviously a great start. Are there teachable moments? I know there are, but from a coach's perspective, like when things are going well, how close this could have gone a different direction had we not corrected this?
Yeah, I think as a coach, I think one of my mentors always says, like, losing is the best teacher. And you tend to take more of it. And I think what I try to do is, with every single win, try to find little pieces in there of, hey, this is the way that we can improve. And not treat it like a loss, but you celebrate the things you're doing well. But at the same time, like, hey, like, where could we have squeezed out 2 or 3 more points in this? And that's the way we go about things.
You also mentioned that you didn't like the way the team started initially. I guess it was a little bit of a slow start.
Yep.
Does that kind of go back to the environment and kind of soaking it in that way?
Yeah, and I think your team has to figure out who they are as the year goes on. So I thought the first match, when I think I came in here last time and talked about it, took 2 sets to figure that out and kind of get into that groove. When we played South Alabama, then McNeese, it took 1 set. And then, again, I joked around afterwards. I was like, all right, 15 points next time. Mm-hmm. Sure enough, we get in the match, 15 points, and then again, it kicked in. But I think we're starting to figure out how we play, and I think kind of the emotions that go behind it also, and play to that a little bit faster as it goes. And I'm hoping this next time, maybe it's 5 points.
Is it weird to do a press conference right before a game?
I walked in and I said, hey, I think this is the first pre-game press conference. I actually liked it. I might do it in the future of like, hey, here's our scouting report. It's not going to get back to them by now. But I think it's important. And I actually had a moment before our match on this last one. We had a good crowd that I heard, I don't know, people were, it was crazy in Bedlam outside of people getting in. And it was a different feeling than it's been in the past. But that's my vision for this program, is putting together a product that people want to come watch and putting together something where you have fans that want to be a part of this program as much as they want to be a part of the 12th man.
So the Connor Stallions documentary got me thinking of how, teams do whatever they can to get an edge. Yeah. Do you sometimes worry, like what is put on social media, what you say on maybe TexAgs Live? Like, are those things like potentially, like, do volleyball coaches not do what Connor Stallions did, but are they looking into it the same way?
I don't think we're going to study what each other's media is saying unless it gets something gets out there from social media. So I don't necessarily like to play games there. I'm a big believer in the best team's usually going to win. You want stuff that's going to fire up your team, but I don't try to play too many games there.
And when you think about efficiency, did you like what you saw from your team?
Yeah, I think we're trending in the right direction. And again, trying to find, like I keep saying this, different ways for different people to come in and contribute because we are deep.
How's Logan looking?
She's looking great. She's getting better and more comfortable in the back row. She's getting more vocal. So having some good conversations and just some little things I think people don't see, but just high and deep swings that we've been working on, that she's starting to become this person that can go up against 2 blockers and still be dominant.
So we got about 1 minute left.
Yeah.
We got SEC play coming real soon.
Yeah.
What do you need to see before that?
Yeah, I think just continuing to improve. I think the ball control piece and trying to figure out again, like I'm going to keep going back to that, the way that different people can come in and try to get people that game experience so they can come in and do that as much as possible.
We're going to do part 2 on Friday, right?
Yeah, we are. And I'll just start with the part 2 now. We get this cool experience on Friday to get people to come out. So if you're a football fan, if you got your ticket with you, it's free. And you want to come check out what we're doing. And we're trying to do some different things with crowd engagement. And if you like beer, that's $5 apparently. So trying to get some people in the stands. And if you were to say SEC play, it's get the 12th man involved in what we're doing. We play Texas on the 27th I want to get people ingrained in our sport.
You got it. Make sure and listen, obviously, again on Friday morning, and then go to Reed Arena on Friday. Jamie, appreciate you, sir.
Always.
When we come back, Recruiting Country next on TexAgs. You're the number one pick. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. I don't know. I've been doing that recently.
I don't know. You do weird voices sometimes.
I do. And somebody called me out on Twitter about it.
You get pitchy sometimes.
I do. I'm sorry about that.
I've told you that it's like, remember, you see Austin Powers?
Yeah.
Whenever he comes out of the cryogenic thing and he unfreezes, and it was like one of the side effects of being frozen for so long. He couldn't control the volume of his voice.
Yeah,
You're like,
I got a little bit of that.
Austin Powers cryo.
And poor Josh, by the way, who, when we're testing the mics, and I know it's still a work in progress, much better than it was day one, Like my voice is like up and down. Like,
is it?
Yeah, oh yeah. Like
you didn't notice that until he was like, "What are you doing?"
In this studio, I noticed it more. I feel like I talk louder in here because I don't know. Like,
it's a bigger space. It is. It is hosting.
You just yelled.
Hosting is way different in here than it was over there. There's a lot of for the person that just listens, they don't understand. There's a lot of nuance to the differences, like even down to the chairs. So this is going to take some getting used to, for sure. It's super nice, and I'm not complaining at all. All I'm saying is that when you do a radio show, and you've obviously hosted way more than I have, but yesterday when I was hosting, I found myself looking for the mic because when I'm talking to somebody, I hold the mic or whatever. And what was that about?
I was just looking at Nick.
No, you weren't.
I just looked at Nick.
See, I knew. You've been hanging. Here's the problem.
Been hanging with OB.
Yes, every morning for how long now?
3 years, and I knew him from before too.
Yeah,
so.
Yesterday we figured out that he cannot his whisper, so he was trying to whisper something to me, and poor Caitlin Torn was right there.
Was it something that he shouldn't?
Well,
be whispering?
It doesn't matter what it was, but he was trying to whisper, and she heard every word of it.
Recruiting Country brought to you by Caprock Health System, a faster patient-centered revolution in care with 2 ERs in the Bryan College Station area, the original 24-hour ER in South College Station and William D. Fitch, and the full-service hospital with ER in Bryan on Briarcrest, online at caprockhealthsystem.com. So I was happy to hear you yesterday because I got a lot of your thoughts on football itself. From a recruiting standpoint, tell me what the vibe was like for those kids.
Yeah, it was a success. And just like you thought it would be because of the atmosphere inside Kyle Field, look, and I put it on the boards in our running recruiting thread, when these kids come into town, I've said it a bunch, they're less tied to the result than the fan base, right, or the individual fan. Because a lot of the people that were in the stadium wearing maroon and white, they wear the ring. They've invested a lot of time and money into this program. These kids, they go on a lot of visits. So all they're looking for is the atmosphere. Did the place leave me with an impression where I want to come back? Now, that is not to discount or undersell the importance of wins and losses in totality on the macro level, right?
Right.
On the micro level, that one game, that one instance, the result doesn't matter, but on the macro, it does. Now, Mike Elko being in the first year of his regime and his tenure at Texas A&M, he's going to get some leash, right? And I think a lot of folks that I've at least talked to in the football world are going, yeah, it's game one of a new coach, and they played a really good team, and they lost, and that happens. But from what we understand, and from the kids that we've talked to, the trainers, the coaches that we've talked to, Kyle Field did what it often does, and it left an impression with a lot of those prospects that were in town, over 120 of them. I was able to I was on the sideline pregame, and there was
ridiculous.
Everywhere I turned and looked, it was kids that I either covered, I knew who they were, and it was an impressive group of players on campus. And for me, one of the most important things was the group of commits that were there. And you had all the Cali kids and a bunch of the Houston kids and some kids from Dallas, and it was just a really good mix. I can't remember how many of the commits weren't there, but there were only a few. I know that Tiger Ryden played on Saturday. Kelvion Riggins had a test that he couldn't get out of, that he's trying to graduate early, so he had to go take a test. So there were some extenuating circumstances for the kids that didn't make it. But for the most part, I would say probably 80-90% of the commit class was there. It's just pretty impressive.
And then a lot of them were tweeting afterwards. Hassan, I remember seeing his immediately after, not the result we wanted, but
and I think you like seeing that from your quarterback commit. I think it was a good week for A&M quarterbacks in terms of how they handled what happened Saturday night. Obviously, I was a huge fan of what Connor did in the press conference, but I thought that was cool to see Hassan come out and support, because everybody knows, USC, there's been a lot of chatter about USC and Hassan. USC's got a quarterback committed, but he's in Georgia, and is Georgia going to press on him to try to flip him? So there's kind of been some, I guess, not musical chairs yet, but potential for there to be some musical chairs on the quarterback front. So I thought it was good that Hassan came out in support of not only his team, but makes you feel better about where he's at in terms of his commitment with Texas A&M. And I know when I say that there's been a lot of chatter about what could happen with him, it's
speculation.
It's speculation. It's nothing that we've heard. It's nothing that Jason or I have picked up on. What, hey, A&M's kind of worried about Hassan, or Hassan's really looking at taking some visits. It could get there, but right now it's not there.
So I think it's totally unfair, and I understand the anger about the offense, but totally unfair to categorize Colin Klein's offense based on that game.
It's totally unfair to make overarching generalizations about anything you saw Saturday night.
One game, right? But I'm curious how Hassan will fit in what we've seen from Colin Klein in the past.
And here's one thing you need to know about Hassan is that when Colin Klein sat down and combed through the 2025 quarterback class, Hassan Longstreet was at the top.
Right.
And this is going back to the spring where we were hearing like, hey, Colin Klein has zeroed in on this kid out of Cali, and he's going to go full bore to try to get him. And they did. And there were some intriguing options in state when you look at a guy like Keelan Russell at Duncanville, who could operate Coach Klein's offense, seemingly has all the tools to operate it at a pretty high level. But they never wavered in terms of their pursuit of Hassan. Obviously, his brother now on the team here as a walk-on. And so there's some growing connections. He's been to College Station a lot. I think that's helped with his comfortability. But his skill set, it's hard to imagine him not fitting in any style of offense. He's mobile, big, strong arm. Seems like he's got a lot of leadership characteristics. I don't know the kid that well because he's a Cali kid, you know. But it may be worth Jason or I taking a trip to California for a few days.
You know what? I'll go with you guys.
Yeah,
that'd be fine.
I don't think I want you in California. I'd rather hang out with you in California than in South Florida.
Why?
Because I feel like in South Florida you turn into a different guy.
I'm the same guy.
No, I feel like you turn in.
Maybe the accent comes out a little bit more.
I'm saying you start rolling your
Can I get a little café cubano, please?
Arroz con frijoles.
Arroz y frijoles negros, señor. Sí me gusta, señor.
See? Yeah. I couldn't go with you. If A&M ever plays a really important game in South Florida.
You mean when we play in the bowl game this year?
I will travel with Olin.
Olin was all about it, by the way. The Cuban food that he had with me.
Like floral shirts.
Yes, yeah.
Really short.
Little accent, too.
Board shorts.
He's like, hello, how are you?
Maybe I avoid both of you.
120 recruits in town. It seems like, I'm sure there's been that many here.
No, that's the most I've ever covered in terms of volume. It's difficult.
And they all brought family. Like, it was packed.
So if you've been in Kyle Field, you can imagine most of the time the recruit sections are behind the A&M bench, on the A&M bench side, from the end zone to about the 25 or 30-yard line.
Yep.
That's all the football recruits. And this week, it stretched from about the 25, 30-yard line on that side all the way around to the south end zone, the first couple of sections in that south end zone. So that's when I knew that it was different in terms of volume because I've never seen recruits. And not just like 2027s, 2028s. Like there was some big-time 2026s sitting in that section. So that's when I knew that the volume was something that I'd never seen because I've never looked up and seen recruits in that section.
So this is going to sound like a complaint. It's not a complaint. I want 120 every game. That's great. But for somebody trying to do their job, like I'm trying to get video of players starting. Oh, who's at left guard? Who's at center? Like when I'm trying to, it was very difficult because the volume of. But I'm telling you, Ronnie, you were there. I was there. Like they were in such a good mood. It was so cool to see the face when Herb Street walked by. Like, oh look,
Yeah.
Like they soaked up that whole moment.
Yeah, and I think that was again, it's Kyle Field at its best, and at some point, look, people can be negative and talk about battered Aggie syndrome all they want to. At some point, this place is going to break through in football. There's too much potential for it. It's too all the positives that it's got. At some point, they're going to coalesce and come together, and it's going to produce consistent winning football. I'm convinced of it. I don't know when it's going to happen, but we've seen programs go from, hey, they've got a bunch of potential to they're winning games at a high rate now. And Clemson's the most obvious example of that. And why can't A&M do it? And why can't A&M do it under Mike Elko? There's just so much. I thought the reaction to the game from the fan base in a lot of directions was disproportionate to what we actually saw. And understanding that it is game one of a new coaching regime. I thought that was a lot of carryover frustration from the last couple of seasons. Did you not?
I was upset. I didn't like the way people handled it. And by the way, we're all disappointed that they lost the game. There's no doubt about that. But some of the anger in the aftermath, I was surprised by, and I addressed it on the postgame wrap too. But I also think with a little distance, people are, especially with a couple wins. And I don't know if McNeese is going to change any minds, but it can be a step in the right direction.
Sure. But no matter what, because of what happened on Saturday, A&M could go beat McNeese 52-3, and people are going to be upset about how some of that looked.
Yeah.
So you're really not going to win back hearts and minds of people that are overly negative or overly emotional about the week one loss until you maybe, if you go beat Florida and Arkansas. and then you'll have Bowling Green. And so you'll have a chance with Mizzou coming in for that to be another big game. But until then, and it's not fair, but that's the way that it's going to be. There's nothing in life, and my dad used to say the fair's in October. That's about all the fair that you've got in life. So, but I did think that it was kind of disproportionate to what we saw and understanding the circumstance. But from the recruiting aspect, I think that they did a great job solidifying, like some of the kids that had never been to an A&M football game in the 2025 commit class. When you look at some of those West Coast guys, Noah McHale, Adonis Curry, Jamar Bill Goins, I think they come to A&M, they see that atmosphere, and it only furthers their decision, right? It only cements their decision more. Like, hey, I made a really good decision. Like, this place was awesome. Like, I want to come back. I enjoyed it. But that's not to say that they're done and dusted in the 2025 class. They don't have to worry about some of their commits. Texas is pushing on Chase Sims.
Right.
Texas will probably push on Keati Armstrong. There's going to be some guys that probably take some visits that you're going to have to weather the storm. And that's where, if winning a bunch of games can help in that arena. But ultimately, I don't think it's the deciding factor for kids in this recruiting cycle, and especially the commits. Whereas last year, what were we saying all season? If they win, they'll keep the commits. If they lose, they won't.
Right.
And they lost, and they didn't keep a bunch of them. When you look at, like Draylon Miller, Ty-Anthony Smith, those kind of guys end up leaving the class. The offensive lineman, Weston from Beaumont United, Weston Davis, they all end up leaving the class if A&M would have won games, and they'd be here. So I don't think that there's that cost on the line in terms of the wins and losses unless it gets out of hand negatively.
Right.
But I think a lot of people believe in Coach Elko, believe in his vision of the program, and that's the beauty of year one, right? You get to sell that, and you're selling the sizzle. We talked all last year about, hey, Jimbo, the sizzle's gone on the steak. You got to sell the steak now.
All right.
With a new coach, you get to sell the sizzle for a little while.
So just in this world, and I'm not asking you to put your analyst hat on, but for conversation's sake, if Texas is going to be going hard after A&M commits, well, you also have the flip side of that. And I don't expect Texas to struggle with Michigan. I think they're going to win against Michigan. But if Texas struggles against Michigan in the same kind of way that A&M struggled, I mean, I don't think so, because Texas, they're coming off a playoff appearance. They're in the top 5. All time, seemingly on the outside, to the outside eye, I would say that they're going in the right direction. We'll see what happens if they lose a couple of games. There's some stuff kind of laying under the surface that you're wondering, A, is it true? And B, if it is true, what does that mean if it bubbles up when the losses happen? So if they happen. So as long as Texas wins games, I think they're going to be they're going to recruit really well. Obviously, their NIL machine is as good as anybody. Yep. And they've had some massive wins in the last couple of weeks when you talk about Jonah Williams and Jamie French. What other schools are trying to pry? All of them?
It's hard to say right now. Texas with a couple. Oregon, I would imagine, was going to be a threat to some of those kids on the West Coast. They finished runner-up to A&M for Adonis Curry and Noah McHale. Mm-hmm. We mentioned USC with Hassan Longstreet. There are some guys that I think are going to be rock solid. Texas was pushing on Tyler Thomas out of Dickinson. He kind of fits the profile of the offensive lineman, which they've taken in the last few years. Just big, massive dude. And so it'll be interesting. Maybe Oklahoma with a Marcus Garcia up there in Denton. So I think you can look at every kid, say for maybe a couple, and go, okay, like this is the school that would push there. But as of today, and these things are so fluid that you have to qualify them every time you say these things. As of today, I'm not anticipating anybody, I don't think that there's anybody that we're looking at that's kind of waffling right now.
Right.
Now, that could change, but as of today.
And it often does.
Yeah, and it's because it's recruiting and it's so fluid. Even if A&M runs the table and goes 11-1, there's going to be somebody, even in that scenario, that starts taking visits and looking around. That's just the nature of recruiting.
DJ Sanders, so there's some notable players that we have some other stats. He had a great week, 11 tackles, and it says a block punt, but in parentheses, unofficial.
Yeah, the unofficial. Yeah, so the high school stats, especially for defensive linemen, it's kind of hard to, I saw DJ, we're putting out Bronny's Best, which is a weekly thing where I go through the A&M commit class, State of Texas, my coverage, and just pull out some of the top performers.
Did I say Hicks or Sanders? I meant Sanders if I said
Hicks. But you meant DJ Sanders. So what I looked at had 8 tackles, 3 TFLs, and a block punt. That has 11 tackles. So who knows, kind of, but he had a great night.
He had a great night.
And a great opening week. And I'm so high on that kid. And if you made me pick right now at 17, 18 years old, who's the best defensive lineman in A&M's commit class, I'd probably go Landon Rink, because Landon is just so technically gifted.
Right.
And he's been extremely well coached, and he plays with so much power, and he's able to convert, his weight room strength to on the field strength. But you talk about what somebody's going to look like in a couple of years. DJ Sanders, his upside is through the roof, and he's such an intriguing prospect because I've said it a bunch. I've just not seen many kids, interior defensive linemen, that are 6'3", 6'4", 300 pounds, and they move around like a 200-pounder. Like in terms of his flexibility, his dexterity, and just the raw power. Like I don't know what he bench presses, but when you watch him play, he just grabs people and moves them. Yeah. So his functional strength is already really high, and it can only go up with some added layers to that in terms of the weight room.
We'll go through some other players here in a moment. If you have a question for Bronny, you can do that multiple ways. You can text us at 979-693-1150. You can put it on the YouTube page and on TexAgs chat there at TexAgs.com if you're watching the show from there. Right now, we're talking about Rollo Insurance. Just shot a commercial with them here in studio. I had Keith and Jackson in here. The difference is real. They're fantastic. That's something that I can guarantee you. OB is meeting with Morgan over there. The whole staff is phenomenal. That's part of the reason they want to be associated with TexAgs is we're leaders in our area. They're the leaders in their area. They are the absolute best. They have offices. Now they have over 50 offices. I didn't know that. 50 offices in this great state of Texas. So they keep advancing that. And you can, it's at 60 offices in Texas. How about that? So they're all over the place. South Texas, North Texas, East Texas, Central Texas, West Texas, everything in between. Car insurance, homeowners insurance, farmers, ranchers, business owners. And their priorities are God, family, and country. Again, that is God, family, and country. Check them out at 888-44-ROLLO or go to ROLLOinsurance.com. That's 888-44-ROLLO or go to ROLLOinsurance.com. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is Recruiting Country, brought to you by Caprock Health System. Ryan Brauninger, David Nuño here.
I didn't say TexAgs Radio once yesterday, so I thought I was going to. Now, I screwed up some
on the rewind, you almost did, right?
Did I?
I thought something on the rewind. You said, Nick, keep it in here. I thought you maybe.
I did, probably. But on the live show, I did not. And I thought for sure I was going to screw that up, and I ended up screwing up some of the ad reads. The way that you do your rundowns is perfect for you. I happen to just hate it.
What do you hate about it?
I don't.
It's very organized.
There's too many colors.
So the colors is what bother you?
They have a reason. They work for your brain.
Okay.
And you should not change that
I'm not
for
going
one
to.
show. For like what I'm saying.
Well, you can change it for yourself.
Yeah.
Do you have access to the rundown?
I know, but it was going to be a lot of highlighting and undoing. But it works for you. It didn't work for me. I'm glad it works for you. You're the radio show host.
It's a studio show. Thanks for remembering that. But if you were to take away the colors, do you not like the organization? Each segment's got its focus.
No, I would, and I would probably. I need more spaces because I like when I had Chris Grant on yesterday, and somebody had some good background information. Whoever prepped that, there was some good background information. I used a little bit of it, but I want that's its own thing. Mm-hmm. So when I'm done with it, I can scroll, get completely rid of it, and go to the next thing. But that's just me. Different strokes for different folks. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong.
No, as long as we deliver high-quality content, right?
High quality.
That's what I like to at least hope for.
And anytime you have Olin Buchanan on here, HQ,
buddy,
high quality.
That guy makes me laugh. And he is not only a dear friend, he is awesome on the show. All right, let's move on to some other performances. Hassan Longstreet looks like he didn't have his best performance, 8 of 17, 79 yards, 2 interceptions, and a
He's
loss.
also been hurt.
Yeah.
He's also coming back from a pretty significant ankle injury. And look, quarterback struggling. It happens. I've said it regardless of the sport, and I was actually talking to Coach Morrison in the lobby about this. If you've played sports at any high level or coached at any high level, you know you can't pick whenever you're going to have a bad day. You don't know when it's coming. You can do all your prep work correctly. Hassan's coming off of an injury. I'm sure he felt, okay, my injury's healed. I feel good. Let's go play. I'm going to have a good night. And you can do everything right during the week. You can have great practices. You can have great prep. And you can show up and have a stinker and have a dud. And sometimes it happens. And so in football, it's a little less forgiving because you only get 12 opportunities. Whereas like in baseball, if you're playing 60 games and you have a couple stinkers, that's kind of expected, and you're out there the next day to try to right your wrongs. But yeah, so Hassan, just like Connor, I fully expect them to, if they're healthy, if both are healthy, I fully expect them to bounce back.
Tiger, big game, big win, 15 rushes, 103 yards, and a touchdown.
Well, DeSoto's going to do that to everybody. I think they won 70-0. I'm not sure how much Tiger played. But DeSoto's going to do that to everybody. I mean, they're legitimately maybe the best high school football team in the country. And the other one would be Duncanville, who's right down the road from them. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. There's been a lot of discussions that I've had with Texas high school football coaches in the last couple of weeks about how do we need parity back? Because we are looks to me after week 1, we are dead set on another Duncanville North Shore state championship game.
How many have we had?
4 or 5. So you could be going on 6. Is that good for Texas high school football or is it bad? And if it's bad, can you fix it? Do you need to fix it? How do you fix it if you think that it's something that you need to do? But it looks to me right now that in Dallas, there's a clear line of Duncanville, DeSoto, South Oak Cliff, and then in Houston. Houston's interesting, actually. It's North Shore and then Atascocita looks awesome. I'm going to go see them on Friday night.
Noah McHale, looking at his numbers, these aren't linebacker numbers. These are receiving numbers, 5 catches, 79 yards.
He told me he was playing. I talked to him a little bit on Saturday. He told me he'd been playing a lot of offense, but he looks great. In terms of just the physicality of what you're looking for in a high school linebacker, he checks every box. And I haven't gotten to talk to him much. I spent more time talking to him Saturday probably than I ever have. Came off as a pretty cerebral kid, very aware, very self-aware. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how his season progresses because on the hoof, he's got all the boxes checked.
Kelshawn Johnston, 1 kickoff return and a receiving touchdown in a loss.
Kate Drawn was at that game. They lost to Houston Legacy, who's got Josh Moses, A&M commit. and a couple of 2026 A&M targets. And Cade was just, he talked so much about that game and how awesome it was. It was kind of Hitchcock had jumped out to I think they were up by maybe 10 or 16 points in the third or fourth quarter, and Houston Legacy comes back and ends up winning it. So that was a really entertaining game. Kelshawn, he's, to me, he's so much like Anias and what you can do with him. It doesn't surprise me to see him get on the kickoff return touchdown, add one of those at least to his mantle this year. I'm sure he'll have a lot more.
And then Tom Lenning event at Consol.
Oh, the Tom Lemming event. Yeah, so that was interesting because Tom Lemming obviously has been in the recruiting game for so long. And he held an event because A&M Notre Dame was one of the primetime matchups, and he knew A&M was going to have a bunch of kids on campus. So he had a photo shoot at A&M Consolidated. We went out there for about an hour and a half. He was generous enough to, not just us, 24/7 was out there as well, some On3 reporters. So we got to talk to a lot of kids. We got to take a bunch of headshots. It's one of those interesting things. It was like during the day on Saturday. So do you interview the kids when you've got them right there, or do you want them to see Kyle Field? And then they have a much better feel and a much better reaction. So I think that'll be over the next couple of weeks. Like tomorrow night, I'm going to watch Willis play. And they've got 2026 superstar Jermaine Bishop. He reminds me a lot of Terry Bussey. Could be an impact player on the offensive or defensive side of the ball. I think to say that he's only going to play one in the college level is shortchanging him. That's how, he's Travis. He's not as big as Travis Hunter. He's not as bulky as Terry Bussey, but he is of that ilk in terms of his athleticism and playmaking ability. So I'm going to talk to him about Kyle Field and just being in there and being in that atmosphere, because I had a chance to talk to him before the game, and I didn't want to interview him before the game. Like, now he's seen it, and we'll see what kind of impression it left. But like kids like him and maybe Tank King in 2026, who I think A&M's doing a great job with in state. I'll talk to them shortly about their experience in Kyle Field, and I expect both of those guys to be back.
All right, last thing for you, Bronny. You said Willis tomorrow. Where else are you going this weekend?
Willis against Klein Collins tomorrow, and then Katy hosting Atascocita on Friday. And with all of my buddies, yeah, it's a big game. And Jason will have a game tomorrow. Then he's going out of town for the rest of the weekend. Cade Drawn will be at Fulshire versus Fort Bend Ridgepoint tomorrow, and then Clear Creek versus Shadow Creek to see A&M commit Kobe Sellers on Friday. And I've got so many guys coming in, my buddies coming in for the McNeese game. Yeah. Like, it was going to take a pretty big high school game to get me to not just say, hey, I'm going to take the Friday off. So, but Katy at Atascocita is one I feel like I need to be at.
It's a big one. Thank you, Bronny.
Atascocita at Katy, excuse me.
Great stuff as always. All right, and thank you for hosting the show yesterday. Moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. They have a great selection of vehicles, commercial vehicles with service body trucks, flatbed trucks, several medium-duty trucks for those heavier jobs. They have complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers. That's the beauty, right? So when you're ready for your oil change, by the way, they have complimentary oil changes for all of their customers. As long as you own that Caldwell Country Chevrolet vehicle, they will do that. Free oil changes for life on them. They have a strong and committed sales staff that have been around for a long, long time, and they are dedicated to helping you find the right vehicle at the right price and the right trade-in value, and they're proud supporters of Aggie Athletics. They are south of big city prices, and they promise to treat their customers like family. They do it to us. They'll do it for everybody. Caldwell Country Chevrolet, about a 15-minute drive, the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. We be back on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline, joined by our buddy Peter Burns here on the program from the SEC Network and ESPN. PB, good morning, buddy.
I am getting ready to start packing. I'm doing laundry. I'll be in College Station on Friday, my first trip in a while. So is Billy sending the jet or are you sending the limo? What's the pickup situation going to be like?
Buddy, we've got interns that are like to do Uber on the side. They got you, right? You'll pay for it, but we'll pick you up.
I'm in. I mean, that's what I need help. I need there to be like a TexAgs thread or something like that. Like, so, this new show that we do, we're going to be traveling each week. It's going to be called SEC Now Live, and this will be SEC Now Live from Texas A&M, and it's a tailgate show. So basically, like, I take our viewers through like what's it like leading into a game, what's the things you have to do, interviews with players, and like I think we're going to have like R.C. Slocum. Hopefully, I want to get Buzz Williams, we get Jace Lavalette, and some of these players like. But I need to know what else do I need to make sure I'm showing people on the SEC Network about a home game over in Kyle Field.
Well, I mean, look, I'm just going to say it out loud. I mean, I think your audience definitely wants to see the TexAgs Live new studio. Maybe you should even do a segment from here or the entire show because it's so awesome, Peter.
I mean, we can make that happen. I've seen it. It looks great, so we can make that. I mean, what else? I mean, Dixie Chicken. What are the other things that I've got to like showcase to where like I would feel empty if I didn't check it out when they're on a game weekend?
Well, I'm going to ask the younger folks here because, dude, all I do is go to work, church, and soccer. That's my life, right? Callie, where do people go here in College Station?
Like before the game?
If you want to show, like Peter wants to show the audience, like this is fun. You got Northgate, obviously. What else?
Aggie Park.
There's
a lot going on there. I know there's a lot of student tailgating in front of Reed Arena. Could go over there.
Okay.
And then obviously all the fraternity tailgates.
You can do all that. We're trying to think of like cool things to do as well. Like, I don't know, like Nick, help us. Give us some ideas, buddy. Like somebody say something clever because I'm running out of ideas.
Carney's is a good spot.
Yeah, Carney's is great.
Carney's is great. So look, you should be asking this question to Billy, who has a social life. Dude, I'm just a dad of 4 kids. I got nothing.
I love it. Hey, no, we're fine. I just needed some kind of ideas in general, and so we'll walk with there. And that's honestly, I mean, taking it to the next level is like, I was really, obviously I was pulling for A&M against Notre Dame, but I really wanted it because I'm like, all right, like I want to have this great vibe everywhere we go. Like it was a great vibe last week over in Knoxville. It was the season opener. They couldn't wait to see this kid, Nico Iamaleava, play, and he lived up to every bit of the hype, if not even more. And now I look at it, I'm like, all right, well, what's that vibe going to be like? I mean, what's it been like over the last, 72 hours after the way, that it was a disappointing loss against the Irish?
People are angry, really angry, more angry than I'm used to. And I think, Peter, part of the reason is that it felt too much like the Jimbo era in that game offensively, that people are not really thinking about the caliber of defense that A&M was going against, the fact that it was a first game in a new regime, the fact that your quarterback was coming back from injury. And those are excuses, and they shouldn't be excuses at this level. I recognize that. But I do think if we see more of that throughout the year, it becomes more validated. But in the first game against a defense that has shut down quality offenses before, let's kind of hit the panic button later. Let's kind of see how things develop over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why. I mean, again, if you and I are having this conversation next week and talking about, man, why did this thing falter against McNeese State? Then all of a sudden, okay, then that sense of angst and that frustration can continue. But and you can see the frustration from Elko. Run the damn ball. I mean, you knew what he wanted to do. And I think that's why I can't wait to be out there because, listen, you've heard me say it on this show. I was saying it on other shows that I was so excited to see what Connor Wigman was going to do now that I felt like, hey, okay, he's somewhat or at least, told that he's healthy, he's ready to play. And, yeah, I mean, Notre Dame is a college football playoff team. I think they punched their ticket with that win, looking at the rest of their schedule and the way that they look. They are legit. But for A&M to be where A&M should be, you need to win those games. And I know that it was just such a disappointing way to start the season. But I'll be honest with you. I'll tell this to Aggie fans. I was extremely disappointed with the way that LSU had started off in Brian Kelly's first year. If they got embarrassed against Florida State, and then they end up playing in the SEC championship game. So all is not lost, but man, it's got to get a whole hell of a lot better quick.
Hey, PB, people were texting the show ideas. By the way, I should have mentioned a couple of our sponsors. You've got the Angry Elephant, which is an awesome Aggie-owned bar. You'll love it. There's 2 locations in town. You've got 1775, our barbecue joint. So we've got Costa Vida. We got a lot of places you can go get atmosphere, my friend.
Tell them to hit me up on Twitter too, because I don't have access to that text line. So at Peter Burns ESPN, like I need the Aggie fans to roll deep here and let me know, because we're going to get there like Friday at like 1 o'clock. We'll have camera crews rolling. Like we want to get as much good footage as we get when we get into town.
So I saw T-Bob's Twitter rant. Actually, it was on the show that he does with Moscona after the game, the post-game show they do. I know you're an LSU guy. Like, what were your emotions during the game and initially after, and how have they evolved since the loss to USC?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're on social media way too much. There's this one GIF that you can use of like Alonzo Mourning back in the day where he's on the bench and he's like shaking his head like, man, this is bad. And then he kind of like realizes like, well, it couldn't be that bad. Like that's how I felt like when I was watching FSU go 0-2. Like, well, at least we're not them. The LSU offense actually looked okay. I mean, not great, but, you know, Nussmeier was not that far off of what I wanted him to be, so I think he played solid. And defensively, too, David, I mean, they played better defense. I think holding – if you would have told me you would have hold Lincoln Riley's team to 20 points until the last minute of the game in an opener, I'd be like, hell yeah, especially after what I saw last year. So this is the difference between a 4-team and a 12-team playoff year. If this is a 4-team playoff year, I'm like, well, the season's over. It's done. Now it's a 12-team playoff, and I'm like, all right, do you have a fighting chance? You do. So I think that right off the bat, I got to thank the college football lords for giving me 12 teams in a playoff as opposed to 4, or else I'd be like, well, the season's over.
Talking to Peter Burns on the Boss Firearms Hotline. So let's kind of nitpick a little bit more. Actually, let's go positive for a moment. How about Vanderbilt, buddy? Like, I don't know if anybody predicted that. I didn't even think about Vanderbilt. Like, they don't even come to my mind, yet that was a great way to start off their season.
Well, and that's a Virginia Tech team that had 5 first-place votes in the ACC. So this was not like this kind of, hey, the bottom of the barrel, but a bigger name. There were people that thought that this team could compete over in Blacksburg. So, I mean, I think what's really cool, and there's kind of an A&M tie to it, is Diego Pavia, their quarterback. He is awesome. And there's a swagger and like a in-your-face, give me the ball type mentality that I haven't seen from a lot of quarterbacks since we saw Johnny. I mean, they both wear that same number. Like, it's kind of like, give me the ball and let me go to work. And so I thought that was the coolest thing, because you're right. I don't think about Vanderbilt a lot because of it feels like they know what they're supposed to be sometimes. And it's like, hey, we're going to be a good team. We're going to have an opportunity. We're going to play hard. We just don't have enough talent. And Diego Pavia is like, F that, man. Like, we can win. But we need to stop thinking about that we're this way. And that was the game-changing mentality that they have. And, they're going to be a fun team. It's a fun offense. And they bring in, the offensive coordinator. They bring in Jerry Kill from New Mexico State and their quarterback. So it's kind of like a package deal that they brought to Nashville, and now they got a chip on their shoulder. It's a fun early season story.
Talking to Peter Burns on the Boss Firearms Hotline. All right, let's talk about the stuff going on in Gainesville with Billy Napier. Look, this is going to be a huge game for both programs, A&M and Florida, in a couple of weeks. And I'm fast-forwarding that because of it's what's more at stake for Billy than for Elko. I think there's going to be much more grace for Mike Elko, obviously, year one, although they got to get that game. But if you're Billy Napier, that is a must-win to keep your job, right?
I mean, the UCF game, I mean, pretty much everything for Billy Napier coming through. And again, this is a situation where it's going to be really interesting because this week, they're probably not going to play Graham Burks or starting quarterback. They're going to have to play DJ Lagway, who's the, 5-star future of Florida football. That might be the blessing in disguise, frankly, for Billy Napier, because at least, hey, all of a sudden, if he plays well against Samford and then he plays well against A&M and this kid plays well against UCF, you can say, well, Billy got us this kid. He's thriving in this offense, so maybe all is not lost. But, man, they needed to be competitive against Miami, especially at home with them knowing that backs were against the wall. And, frankly, it wasn't a competitive game. So I want to see if he can rally the troops, or does apathy start setting in Gainesville. Once apathy sets in, you guys know it. It's basically the writing is on the wall.
All right, let's look at Ann Arbor this weekend. Michigan. I'm still trying to figure out who Michigan is. I think I know who Texas is. Do you think Michigan, with the rebuilt offense, new coaching staff, obviously Sharon Moore's still there, but now as the head coach, and the fact that the defense returns so many starters, does Michigan at home, can they get Texas?
You know what? I mean, it's odd that we sit there and look at Texas or Oklahoma as these teams are like, hey, do you mind carrying the banner right now? Because the banner of the SEC was not great. I mean, after losing to Miami, after losing to Notre Dame, after losing to USC, you're like, you don't want this narrative to come in and going, hey, everybody's kind of caught up to this conference. So in a weird way, holistically from a regional standpoint, Texas needs this win, and the SEC needs this win. I'm a firm believer that Texas, as hard as it is to say here on TexAgs, this is a team that has shown me after last year that they can live up to that hype. And yes, they lost C.J. Baxter, they lost Xavier Worthy and all those guys. I think they're legitimately that good. I think the matchup you're going to see is between that secondary that's maybe a little bit questionable for Michigan against Quinn Ewers and that talented wide receiver crew. So I like Texas, but I think that thing is going to be down to the wire. It feels like a 27-28 type game that's brewing up there in Ann Arbor.
All right, PB, Houston lost their first game. They do get Oklahoma this weekend. Not that I expect you to know the Cougars inside and out, but that being said, Oklahoma, they had some struggles, I guess, protecting quarterback, but that being said, they still looked awesome.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, I knew that they were going to be good. The problem was behind a brand-new offensive line. I mean, I think 4 of the 5 guys were gone, and then now you got Jackson Arnold making his first start. That's kind of what I thought it would happen. And, I could see Arnold, kind of being one of those guys that's kind of slower. But, yeah, I mean, the next 2 weeks for Oklahoma ends up being really interesting games. I think you've got Houston. I think you got Tulane the week after. So, again, I think for Oklahoma, that game that they're going to have, I believe the first home game that they play, first home game they're going to play is against Tennessee. So Josh Heupel making his return to Norman, that game's going to be crazy. And then think about, their first road game is going to be Auburn. So I don't think you're going to know what you have in Oklahoma and Jackson Arnold until probably week 3 or 4 when they start playing these SEC games. And we finally got an SEC game this week. We get South Carolina and Kentucky. And I think there's a ton of pressure on Mark Stoops to win this game because Shane Beamer's won it the last 2. Remember, they had this whole little talk at media days last year about, Stoops had said something, well, I'm not a sunglasses on and dancing type of guy. And it felt kind of like a shot towards South for Shane Beamer. And then in the post game after they won, Beamer puts on glasses and dances. That's the pettiness that I love of college football. So that's a monster game coming up this weekend out in Lexington.
PB, text us. We'll figure out a game plan for this weekend, buddy.
What's up?
Text us so we can figure out a game plan for this weekend. Make sure we show you around some cool spots.
We will make sure it happens. I get there on Friday, and I will. I just hope that I'm not sober by the end of Saturday afternoon. I hope that we're celebrating an easy victory against McNeese State and that the offense got back tracking.
I hope so, brother. You have a great evening. We'll talk to you soon.
Later, boys.
Later, man. Peter Burns there. Thanks to Blue Delta Jeans for that. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with one final segment. I got some stats to read to you, and I know that Callie's got some text messages and some thoughts to get into. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, it's time to end the day with Double Dave's. Caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls. I don't like the way I said that. A dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggie land since 1984 with your favorite pizza, with your favorite world-famous pepperoni rolls. Reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. So I got some stats I want to read here in a moment, but before that, let's go to the Angry Elephant News on Social Center. Callie Garner.
First of all, I just want to apologize to all my College Station locals. I was informed by my backroom people that I had a major epic fail when I was
She just
asked.
absolutely crumbled in that segment.
I think we both did. We crumbled on the Peter Burns segment.
Yeah,
We did.
they're giving me a hard time because I said fraternity tailgates and then I laughed. So
What?
I thought that was a fine answer. I mean, I think that people would want to see Peter Burns at a fraternity tailgate. Like, that's good content. No?
I don't know. Remember, Billy 2 years ago dubbed me as NFN, No Fun Nuño. So I don't know what fun looks like other than like.
Well, I'm sure there's a couple people back there that can show you. Kay Nagley.
Kay Nagley knows how to have fun. She does. She does know how to. She is. Oh, she's yelling at us behind the glass. What else do you have for us?
We
Kelly?
have a text that asks, it says, do we have a set offensive line or are they still moving guys around?
Well, with the injury to Martin Naboo, let's just give it some time to figure out. Like I have a pretty good feel for who's going to be where, but what happened now?
I'm saying I want more.
Oh, you want more? What else can you give us on Kay Nagley?
We have fun together. That's about it. That's all I can get into.
What else do you have for us, Kelly? I just hear a lot of yelling in the background. I'm just moving on. Just moving on.
Well, obviously, I mean, we have people saying Peter Burns needs to go to the Angry Elephant and then to see Reveille and all the statues on campus. So, yeah, I mean, I have a list. I was flustered and unprepared, but I have a list that I can send him.
Ethan Jones sent me a stats report, and I'm just going to read you a couple of the ones. On Saturday against Notre Dame, A&M allowed 198. Why you got to remind me, Ethan? 198 yards rushing on 5.82 8 yards per carry. Last season, the only time they allowed more rushing yards was against Tennessee when they allowed 232 yards. The most yards per carry allowed last season was 5.5 against LSU. In the first half, the A&M run defense was solid, only allowing 65 rushing yards on 4.6 yards per carry. However, in the second half, A&M allowed 100 and why are you making me sad, bro? We know about the turnover battle. Connor Wegman's 2 interceptions against Notre Dame was costly, obviously, and those 2 turnovers changed the game. Without them, who knows how the game would have ended. And he gave me some stats on Connor. Connor Wegman only had 2 completions that went for 15-plus yards, 15-yard completion to Cyrus Allen, and, of course, that first pass to Trey Watson that went for 18 yards. That's the unfortunate news. But as we look ahead, what are they going to do against McNeese, right? I know that's what we started the show with. There's probably nothing that'll make you feel super good. But if we see Happy Feet again, then we got something to worry about. But if we get some confidence, it's like in baseball. When I was little, yes, I played baseball. I wasn't very good, Bronny. You know, when I would be in a struggle, my dad would say, bunt, get that confidence back. Well, let's get that confidence back against McNeese State. We're going to have the McNeese State head coach on the program tomorrow, Gary Goff, so we're looking forward to that. All right, that's going to do it for TexAgs Live here on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We will see you all mañana.